Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Tuesday, the 20th of August, 2019. Happy birthday! I don't know, somebody's birthday, so happy birthday. Welcome in, everybody. It is actually my nephew's birthday today. He turns 16 years old and gets his driver's license today, if he passes his test, which he will. Welcome in. No pressure. Hopefully everybody can see and hear me well. I'm starting a little bit early today because I want to make sure that there's time to fix any problems if we have any, and to make sure we give the dogs a cookie. Who wants a cookie? Well, I think I have a couple of people, well, kind of like people, but nicer, dogs that want cookies. There's one for you. Good boy. There's one for you. Okay. See you in a few hours. There, that's done, and I'm on schedule. We're going to just wait a few minutes for people to join us here in the chat room and get their notifications that we've gone live. So hopefully everybody's doing well. We're going to put the wrap up on this machine today with the final install, which is the wireless card. And then after that, it's just cable management and package it up and get it sent out to the client. And speaking of the client, Madi Yoel, who has joined us in the chat room, has contributed $5 to the channel, and Madi is the owner of this computer. And I'm sure he's excited to receive it. I know I would be. Hello to all my friends in blue. Thanks, you guys, for jumping in early into the chat. And I'm just kind of looking through the chat here. Ken wants to know if this motherboard has built-in Wi-Fi, then why add the Wi-Fi card? This board does not have Wi-Fi. There is a version of the board that you can buy with built-in Wi-Fi. The reason I'm against built-in Wi-Fi on a motherboard is the Wi-Fi standards are rapidly changing. They're getting faster, security is improving, and if you want to keep up with the latest Wi-Fi standards, that means that you would have to replace, or rather add a Wi-Fi card, since you cannot replace the Wi-Fi that's soldered onto a motherboard. If you have a motherboard from 5 years ago, then you have 5-year-old Wi-Fi on it. And if you want to run at 5-year-old speeds on a 5-year-old board, well, that's your agenda. What I prefer to do, which to me makes more sense, is rather than pay more money for a board with Wi-Fi that will go obsolete or be replaced within typically 12 months, that's how often the Wi-Fi standards change, on average. I'd rather just go ahead and put a Wi-Fi card in it now, which will be far superior to anything available on the board as far as performance, range, all of that is going to be better with an add-in card. And then when the standards change, and they will, the customer need only remove that PCI Express card that's Wi-Fi and put in a different PCI Express card that's Wi-Fi. So now instead of going 802.11b, they can go 802.11g, and then they can go 802.11n, and then they can go 802.11ac, and then they can go 802.11ax, and then they can go 802.11, whatever the future holds. It continues to evolve and expand and just gets better and more secure. I've seen Wi-Fi speeds exceed that of an Ethernet cable. Now, an Ethernet cable will always be more secure and more predictable, more reliable. But sometimes you don't have a choice. or sometimes it's just a preference. But to lock yourself into a soldered-on Wi-Fi chip on a board, it doesn't make any sense to me. That, to me, will help you for a few months, but sooner or later, it's going to be slow and it's going to be insecure. And you're going to have to add a Wi-Fi card. And that means going into the BIOS and disabling the built-in Wi-Fi on the board. And it just complicates things and adds expense that, to me, doesn't make any sense at all. So I do not recommend built-in Wi-Fi on the board unless we're dealing with a really small case or a limited motherboard. Typically with a really small case like a mini ITX or something like that, you've got to have built-in Wi-Fi if you're not going to use an Ethernet cable, because there's no place to add an add-in card apart from Wi-Fi. So form factor is a big concern. Obviously, if you can have an antenna, such as the antenna here on this this ASUS, what is this called? A PCIe AC88. You can achieve speeds of, I think I achieved 2.1 gigabits per second Wi-Fi, which is incredibly fast. And the antenna can be manipulated and moved around. Whereas if it's built onto the board, in many cases the antennas screw right onto the back of the case, and the case acts as an obstacle in the path of the antennas that you've just attached to it. Now, not always, sometimes the antennas are on cables, but even those cables are typically not long enough for you to really adjust it in any meaningful way. And furthermore, the antennas on this, this is a 4x4, and so to find a 4x4 on a motherboard is pretty rare. It's possible, but that just means you're spending more for the motherboard for a Wi-Fi card that's going to be obsolete in 12 months. Or it won't be obsolete, but there'll be something newer, better, faster within 12 months. And there'll be no way for you to upgrade what's on the board. You will have to replace it, meaning you'll disable the onboard Wi-Fi so you can add your add-in Wi-Fi. So rather than paying more for a board for Wi-Fi that's only going to be good for, and when I say good, I mean it's only going to be up to date with performance and security for, I don't know, 12 months, 24 months, whatever it happens to be in your particular case. Or maybe you don't care and you just want to live with some slow thing and you don't care if it's the fastest. My customers generally like to have their computers future-proof, and that means the ability to change things as they need to be changed. Imagine if you were using onboard graphics from 10 years ago. Imagine how slow that would be by today's standards. And same can be said for Wi-Fi as well. Even if the system is easily still in use 8 years from now, the Wi-Fi will be far obsolete that's built onto the board, and I think it'd be unwise to even use it. And that means that boards that offer these additional features, they're taking something away to give that to you. It might be a PCI Express slot. And the thing about a slot is you can take things out, put things in. You can upgrade, change it. Maybe you don't want a Wi-Fi card anymore. Maybe you've moved and you don't need Wi-Fi, but you need a video capture card, and you've only got one slot available. You can replace the Wi-Fi card with a video capture card. You're not going to desolder the Wi-Fi chip off the motherboard and solder in a video capture card. That ain't happening. You're not going to rewrite your own BIOS. So it's all about flexibility and thinking of not just today, but thinking of tomorrow. And then when you think about the money that's involved and you think about the effort, it is less money overall and less effort. So that's why we go with a wireless card. We're able to determine which card we want, which driver, obviously, which because of the card we're picking, we're effectively picking which driver we want to use. We're not stuck with whatever the motherboard manufacturer has included, be it something superior or inferior. You don't have a choice. You get what the motherboard manufacturer gives you. I'm a big fan of having choice, so that's why we're adding a wireless card instead of spending an extra $60 or $80 for the version of this board with built-in Wi-Fi, which again takes away from other features. At least, it's taking a channel and it's adding more complexity to the board. If the Wi-Fi were to break on the board, do you send the whole board in for RMA over a Wi-Fi card? Or are you just going to replace the Wi-Fi card by disabling it and adding one? Once again, if the Wi-Fi card dies and it's an add-in card, you just replace it yourself. You don't have to send the whole motherboard in and be without a computer during the RMA process. So I think if you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense, except in the case of a of a mini ITX system. It doesn't make sense to use built-in Wi-Fi. Now, that being said, that is still the customer's decision to make, not mine. So I let the customer know all of the pros and cons of selecting one over the other, and then the customer, with that information, makes their decision. 8 times out of 10, the customer agrees what I say makes sense, it's logical, and that's usually the way they want to go. But every once in a while, customers don't care about logic or reason. They've just got it in their head, that's what they want, and they don't care. And that's fine with me. I just don't want I don't want my customer to be surprised a couple years down the road, or however long it is after their ownership, that they realize the limitation they've set themselves up for and then blame me for it. So it's all about conveying all the information to the customer and having the customer make the decision that's best for them, because ultimately it won't affect me one way or the other. $500 Wi-Fi card? No. This Wi-Fi card is about $100. It's probably the best Wi-Fi card, in my opinion, on the market today. I've never seen a $500 Wi-Fi card. What are your thoughts on coax 10 gigabit per second network interface card? It sounds like something that you would have in a corporate office. Anybody at home with a 10 gigabit internet card is I don't know. It's sort of like having a walk-in refrigerator at your house. It makes sense in a restaurant or, at a food distributor. I don't think having a walk-in refrigerator makes sense to have in your home, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that's got one. Good for you. You don't represent the majority of people that use refrigerators in their homes. 10 gigabit per second in 2019 in a home scenario is like having a walk-in refrigerator in your home. It's overkill and probably won't be utilized and very expensive. So if I were you, I'd stick with gigabit in a home. And if you have a big enough corporation to justify 10 gigabit and the expense and the maintenance that goes along with it, then certainly the right shoe for the right job. I'm not going to put on a climbing shoe to go running or a running shoe to go climbing. 10 gigabits in the home doesn't make sense for 99.8% of users, maybe even more than that, actually. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, there will come a time when 10 gigabits per second makes sense and is considered normal for home use, but we're not there yet. It's far extreme, and you'll be hard-pressed to find any equipment like NASs and things that could even keep up with it or even have a connector to plug into for it. So, and if you could, they're very, very expensive. It's very cost prohibitive with very little real-world benefit to home users. What's the point to have Wi-Fi on a desktop? Well, some people have homes that are not pre-wired. Some people have homes that were built 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Some people have homes built 40 years ago. They are simply not wired for Wi-Fi. Some people may be renting and are not allowed to enter, put wires into the walls. There's all kinds of reasons why you would have Wi-Fi on a desktop. What's really important to me is that if you want to get in the business, you don't get to well, you can, but you won't be in business very long. You don't get to be such a closed-minded person that it's impossible for you to understand anybody else's reasoning but your own. Because if that's your personality, you don't belong in this business. In fact, you don't belong in any business where you deal with customers. When you deal with a customer, it's important you listen to the customer's needs. Nobody asked you what your needs were. So that's not what my job is. My job is not to tell the customer this is what your needs are and why would you ever want that, right? You don't need that. If the customer wants Wi-Fi, I don't ask why. It's not my business. If they want it, they get it. That's the end of the story. But that being said, there are plenty of customers that have desktops that have basements and upstairs and et cetera, older homes, lots of reasons where cables cannot be run, and they want to have a computer up or down or in this particular area of the house. And so Wi-Fi enables them to have that. It's same with Wi-Fi printers, same with anything Wi-Fi enabled. Even these Fire TVs and things that Amazon sells, those are Wi-Fi enabled. And even if I could run a cable, why should I? It's just a hassle, as opposed to if the video is going to come through the same via my Wi-Fi or via an Ethernet cable, why would I go through the trouble and expense of running an extra cable just so I can watch TV? If I can just enter my security code in SSID and be done with it, it's a lot faster, cheaper, it's done. So lots of different reasons, lots of different attitudes, but try and keep an open mind that the way you live your life, most people would probably think is weird. In much the same way you think other people living their life is weird. So instead of following this basic mindless mindset, rise above and understand that you don't have to agree or disagree with what a customer orders. It is of no concern of yours and doesn't need to be justified to you. And when you're the customer, you will expect the same, as I'm sure when you go shopping for anything. You don't need somebody telling you what it is you need to buy or shouldn't buy, or questioning what you're buying. It's none of their business. Their inability to exhibit any consideration for others is all that is. And it's very disappointing when people exhibit that. What is better, Wi-Fi or power line plugs? It depends. It depends on the structure, the distance, and the speeds you're looking to attain along with your budget. And so depending on the answer of those three questions, Wi-Fi will be better or power plug will be better. Depends on how you answer the questions. There is no, listen, guys, there's no such thing as this is better for everybody all the time. The world doesn't work that way. It never has. And again, you've got to stop keeping your mind so closed. There is no one size fits all. It does not exist. You have to take into consideration that there are different people in different environments and different buildings with different needs and different budgets. And that's why all of these options exist. Just because you can't comprehend a reason why you would buy a specific thing doesn't mean nobody has a reason. It just means you're incapable of understanding other people's needs. It's not something I would boast about, but that's me. Again, there's a mentality on the internet, which is there's just one way. There's one way to apply thermal compound. There's one thermal compound to use. There's one temperature range you should see. There's one good CPU for gaming, and there's one good video card for. It's just not true. It's never been true, and it's delusional. It's borderline insanity to suggest or even consider one product being better universally for all people, regardless of price, availability, reliability, or expectations of the customer. It is absolutely phenomenally inconsiderate and blind. You've got to be better than that. Come on. The Bicycle Lady says, I got a notice from Acronis that Acronis version 2020 is available. Yes. Yes, that is true. Today is August 20th, and Acronis 2020 just became available today. I will be bringing Begowden from Acronis on the show, and we're going to talk about some of the new bells, whistles, and features and demonstrate them during a live interview. We couldn't do it today. I'm too backed up in work. But once I get caught up, we'll bring Begowden back on. We'll bring Begowden back on, and we'll demonstrate some of what these new bells, whistles, and features are. But yes, Acronis 2020 is out. Now, if you want to save a little money, we will have a coupon code when we do the interview. Acronis will offer the viewers, you guys, a discount code for the product. If you can't wait, you can certainly buy it today. But if you want to wait maybe a week or so, should be about a week, I hope. We'll bring Acronis on, and we'll make sure that they offer a discount code for the product to encourage you guys to take advantage of it. I've played around with Acronis 2020 a little bit, and so far its interface is exactly the same as 2019. So if you're already familiar with 2019, it's not like you gotta start all over again, right? It's not, the interface is still mostly the same. And so for that reason, I'd like Begautin to explain the new features, because they're not obvious to me just by, bringing the interface up. Looks exactly the same. Paladin George wants to know what I think of thermal grizzly carbonaut pads. They're just for people, in my opinion, who have more money than brains. I think they're a complete waste of money, and they solve a problem that doesn't exist. Thermal pads aren't going to make your cooler perform any better. If you want better cooling, buy a better cooler. Any sort of thermal compound to improve your cooling is a waste of thought and a waste of money and a waste of time, in my experience and in my opinion. It's sort of like, I want a faster car, so I'll put better gas in it. It's not going to make your car any faster. It doesn't. Fact, it does not. Just looking through the comments to see if there's other questions in here. What is your brand of box cutter? I don't see it listed in your tools. Yeah, it should be listed in the tools. It's Milwaukee, just like the screwdriver. It's a Milwaukee box cutter. So yeah, just looking through here. Carrie, this is Geo Johnson. He says, I built a new i5 9600K CPU and I'm cooling it with the Scythe Mugen 5, and after running Prime 95 for 20 minutes, my max temp was 57 degrees centigrade. That's fantastic. Not that the i5 runs that hot to begin with, but that's still really good temps. Regardless, AMD's new graphics cards, AMD's telling you, hitting 110 degrees Celsius is within specification. So AMD's even telling people to chill out when it comes to worried about heat. Did I just say that? Yeah, people are too obsessed with temperatures. If your computer was running at 67, 77, or even 87 degrees centigrade on the Prime 95 test for 20 minutes, it still makes no difference whatsoever. None. Zero. If it makes you feel better to see 57 instead of 67 or 77 or 87, it's great. But in the real world, your computer's not running any faster, it's not going to live any longer, it's not going to be any less reliable or any more reliable. But that Mugen 5 is a good cooler. So if that's the point, then I agree. But if it's, with regards to the temps, as long as you're within the specification of the design, it has no effect on the computer whatsoever. So I just want you to really understand that this obsession that people have with temperatures on the internet is strange to me, because in reality, it makes very little difference at all, unless you're exceeding the specifications. So if you're exceeding specifications, I'd like to hear about it. But if you're not, you have nothing to worry about, nothing to fix, and nothing to repair, and nothing to spend your money or time on. Okay. Is it possible to have an M.2 SSD and a Samsung SSD on one build? Well, Samsung makes an M.2 SSD, so I'm not sure I understand your question. You can have whatever you want in your build. You can have M.2, SATA, NVMe, hard drives, solid state drives, any mixture of any of those above, all the way up to filling up the capacity of the board, with limitations that if you use one thing, another thing may be disabled. So if you have 6 SATA ports and you have an M.2 drive in use, like I explained, it may use 1 or 2 of your SATA ports, leaving you 4 instead of 6, or 2 instead of 4, or 6 instead of 8, or 8 instead of 10. But yes, you can fill all of them up with that exception, including all your M.2 slots. That's what they're all for. However, having said that, storage is so cheap right now, I don't know why anybody would have more than 2 drives. Or just perhaps they've got something old and it still works and they're not letting it go. But that old drive is slowing their whole system down, so they're not really getting away with any bargain hunting. They're whole system's being held up by that old drive that they consider to be free storage with no consideration on the impact it has on overall system performance. But I'm not the one that has to live with it. What about Bluetooth devices? Will those connect through the Wi-Fi card? I think this Wi-Fi card has Bluetooth. I'm not sure. Maybe not. Some Wi-Fi cards do, some don't. I think this is just a Wi-Fi card. I don't think this is Bluetooth enabled. What would you connect to Bluetooth to your computer? I'm just kind of curious. I understand connecting Bluetooth to a pair of speakers or headphones. I understand connecting Bluetooth through a cell phone. I'm not sure why you would connect Bluetooth to a desktop. I understand if you have perhaps a Bluetooth mouse that you use with a tablet, but Bluetooth mouse is just not as responsive as a regular 2.4 gigahertz wireless mouse that you would use with a desktop. And Bluetooth mice and keyboards are more expensive. So I'd be just kind of curious what you would use Bluetooth on a desktop for. Again, I'm not saying no, just saying I'm trying to imagine why it would be necessary. I can't think of any reason myself, but you can always add a Bluetooth USB receiver for $5 and plug it into a USB port and add Bluetooth. That's really not a big deal. Headphones. Me, I wouldn't listen to headphones on a Bluetooth speaker, on a Bluetooth connection. There's a weird delay, and there seems to be, at least with regards to the headphones themselves, they don't seem to be very good headphones. Like if you want studio quality, nothing's going to be Bluetooth as far as audio goes. No speakers, no headphones. Any sort of wireless audio is going to be horrendous on the speaker side of it. So you can perhaps go wireless from the phone to the speakers, but the speakers, if you want good audio quality, if you want the full range of audio, I've not heard any speakers that are wireless that sound good, Bluetooth or otherwise. But that's me, that's just me. Perhaps you don't really care that much. But on the other hand, like I said, you can buy a $5 USB Bluetooth adapter, plug it into any USB port on a desktop or a laptop for that matter, and be done with it. No big deal. Android to Windows, no cable. Okay. Carrie, I'm about to make a big move and I want to take my PC and monitors. What's the best way to ship it? You can take it over to FedEx and have FedEx pack it for you and insure it to its right value. If it arrives damaged, FedEx can't say it wasn't packed properly and we'll have to pay the claim. So that's what I do. David wants to know how I'm liking the new floor. I love this floor. I like it a lot. Gio says that Mugen 5 cooler or Mugen 5 cooler from Scythe is absolutely quiet. Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, we witnessed that here. What are the components of the gaming computer? All the components are listed in the video notes below this video. It is surprising to me how many people use YouTube and don't know how to use YouTube. Every single video you watch has video notes that the author has spent time putting critical information in there to commonly asked questions. And if you're not aware that those are there, then you're missing out on a ton of information. Now, I realize on some devices like televisions and tablets and smartphones that information may not be obvious to you, but it is there, and you have to learn how to access it through whatever device you're using. On a desktop, it's very obvious. On a desktop, it'll just show you part of the notes and then say show more. So it's all there for you. I spent a lot of time on those video notes. It often delays my ability to make videos by upwards of 1 to 2 hours, getting all of the links proper and all the spelling and grammar and everything checked and double checked and triple checked. And so it's a little bit disheartening when somebody doesn't realize all that time and effort was put in to answer the very question they're asking. So be aware that that's on every single video that you will see on YouTube. Now, some creators don't spend as much time as I do. Others spend even more time on it, or even have dedicated employees that do nothing but, create thumbnails and put all the notes in. Because you can fill up, I don't know how many characters, but it's got to be like a full chapter of a book worth, page after page after page. So there could theoretically be tons of info that you are completely unaware of that's available to you in the video. And, that's pretty much, the way the platform works here. So check that out. And then I think you'll find most of the information you're looking for is already answered there in most videos, not just by me, but by any video creator. And Madi's contributed $20. Hey, Madi, thank you for that. Catherine has confirmed that the Wi-Fi card we're using today is Wi-Fi only. It's not Bluetooth. I didn't think it was Bluetooth. Thank you for clarifying that. Paul Howe says, I'm in the UK eating a bag of smoky bacon crisps. Right on. My favorite. My favorite. Will you be using more Be Quiet cases? I will use them and recommend them for any client that's curious about them. Generally, it'll be a home user, not a business user. This is a great case for a gaming system for a home user, not so much for a business computer because of its glass panel and RGB lighting, and it's a bit large. So yeah, but other than that, it's a great case for that need. Absolutely, I like it a lot. I do like this case. Thank you for asking. Alhaj Depeche says, on Android video, the video notes work the same as a desktop. So, okay, that's fine. I guess it depends on if you're watching the video through your browser or through the YouTube app. It may change how you see the video notes. So just bear that in mind as well. How it's presented to you depends on the app you're using on a smart device versus a PC or laptop, whatever. What is my floor? Oak. The floor is a luxury vinyl plank. LVP is what it's called. It's a fairly new product. And it has a tongue and groove construction. It can be floating or glued down. I selected glued down. Obviously, the floor that it sits on has to be completely flat, or it's going to convey that through the floor. So if you have any holes or dips or cracks, that all has to be corrected and smoothed out. Precision if you want a completely smooth floor. Because it's a tongue and groove style, it is there to emulate and look like wood without having to worry about termites or expansion or contraction from heat and cold that wood can have. It's also, unlike tile, I don't have to worry about grout. And if the foundation continues to move and shift, the tile above would crack, as is what happened with the tile I had, which wasn't even installed right to begin with. There's no grout to clean, and there's no cracks to worry about. And it can be repaired. You could put heavy furniture on it, which can dent it over time. You could also take a knife to it, and, or a sharp object, and you can cut this floor. And then you would have a torn panel, basically. So for that, I kept a box and a half of extra for any future repair needs, because that can be cut away, and then that can be re-glued down. If it's a floating floor, then the floor has to be, the tongue and groove has to be completely dismantled to wherever the break is. And then you put your new piece in, and then you attach it all back to the wall. It could take a long time. So overall, I thought glue down was the best option for me. They told me that when you glue this type of floor down, it's very, very difficult to pull up. And that putting another floor down, it would just be easier to put a new floor down on top of this one, since it's completely smooth, rather than try and pull this floor up. Which sounded perfect to me. Like, I want one floor and done with it forever. And if anybody wants to do something to it when they buy this house, if and when I ever move out, that's their problem. But this floor is good, should be good for the lifetime of the house. And that's why I selected it. Fredrik Ludholm from Sweden has contributed 110 Swedish kroner. Thank you, Fredrik. Thanks for your contribution and your continued support of the channel. I appreciate that very much. Carl says it's like vinyl tile. No, remember, tile has grout. This goes together just like a wooden floor. It is a tongue and groove construction. Each piece connects into the next piece. And so that gives it all the benefits of a wood floor without any of the side effects of a wood floor. It's also completely waterproof, and it's much less expensive to purchase by the square foot. So we'll see how it lasts over time, but right now I'm so happy with this floor. And the baseboards were done as well, because we had some crappy baseboards. So we got nicer baseboards now, a nicer floor, and then maybe the countertops and the cabinets in a year or two, whenever I can pay the floor off, which is going to be a while. But thank you. I appreciate your kind words. And the floor does have a texture like wood. It's not completely smooth. It's got little ridges. So when you walk on it barefoot, it feels like you're walking on a wooden floor, which I like. The tile that I had was completely smooth, and if that tile got wet in the kitchen, which is pretty common, it would be very easy to slip and fall. And if you've ever fallen onto a hard tile floor, let's just say it could result in a trip to the hospital, especially the older you get. So I couldn't get rid of that old tile fast enough. Fredrik Ludholm has again contributed 100 Swedish kroner. He wants to know about what are my thoughts about AMD's progress. AMD's doing good. In some cases, they lead the way in manufacturing. They're down to 7 nanometers already. Intel's struggling with 10. AMD still struggles on the gaming side. They're struggling to improve Threadripper. They're struggling to improve the gaming side performance of their processors. But they are getting there. And if they keep going at the pace they're going, and if Intel keeps going at the pace they're going, AMD may be something to really consider, but all of this focus on the CPU is a bit misguided when you have no focus on the motherboard and the chipset. So whereas Intel's chipsets have been proven over time to be compatible and not have issues, AMD's chipsets have not, and these chipsets are going to be critical as to the performance of the CPU. It's sort of like caring about the horsepower of the car, but not caring about the tires that you put on it. There's no good having a 230-mile-an-hour Bugatti and putting $50 tires on it, because those tires will explode from heat, and then you'll crash and wreck your car and probably die if you try to. The tires are rated for certain speeds. As such, all of this focus on AMD CPUs is one piece. What do you do with the CPU when you get it? You put it in a motherboard. Well, does the motherboard affect performance? Of course it does. It affects how many lanes you have available. It affects it involves how much RAM can you install. That's often limited by the chipset. How many USB 3s or 3.1 ports you can have is limited by the chipset. How fast data can move through the lanes and how many lanes there are with regards to how many slots you can have and how upgradable it is, all on the chipset. So if all you're thinking about is the CPU and you're not giving any consideration to the motherboard, that to me doesn't make any sense. You can have the best CPU in the world, and if there's no motherboard that can take advantage of it, if there's no motherboard that's reliable, if there's no motherboard that's affordable, I mean, AMD could, in theory, sell the best chip in the world for $100, but if you've got nothing to plug it into, what's the point? What good is having just a CPU without a motherboard? So when you think about AMD, or you think about any manufacturer, you have to wonder how that ties in with the rest of the system. My issue with AMD is not with their CPUs. It's with the motherboards and the chipsets. And I'll keep saying that as many times as I need to until people stop asking me that question. Because AMD can make the best CPU money can buy. But that doesn't mean the motherboard you're plugging it into is equal. I find it very interesting that many of the early reviews on the Ryzen 3000 series chips were done on the very most expensive motherboard available. And wouldn't you know, AMD sent the chip with the motherboard to the reviewers. So the reviewers would all have consistent results. They didn't say, here's the chip, now go pick a motherboard. Why do you think AMD did that? AMD doesn't make the board. Why did AMD choose another manufacturer to include with their product for a review? Like when I review this Be Quiet case, Be Quiet sent me this dark base 700 case to review. They didn't say put this motherboard in it. They didn't instruct me to put any sort of part in there, not a power supply, nothing. There it is. Use it as you want. Why do you suppose AMD did not do that? That's what I want to know. You are being tricked. You're being manipulated. And I'm encouraging you guys to open your eyes and see what's being presented to you. Now, they all do this. Intel does the same thing. Nvidia does it. They all do it. They skew. They don't do it all the time. Depends on the product. But they skew everything to their best benefit. Why would you send a reviewer, if you're a product manufacturer, why would you send a reviewer the cheapest motherboard you could find? You know that's not going to make your chip look good. So it's just common sense. Now, if you're going to spend the ultimate amount of money for a board that supports that AMD chip, then you can expect those same results the reviewers got. But it still doesn't answer compatibility issues or reliability issues down the line. That can only be proven in time. And of course, it varies with how you use it. So you may have a piece of software that you use that's not very common, and you might find that piece of software does not perform or work at all with that chipset, and it may have nothing to do with the CPU. So just keep all that in mind. Life is a little more complicated than just picking a CPU and everything's resolved. We haven't achieved that yet. Now, there may be a time when all the features on the motherboard are built right on the chip. We'll probably get there. Chips are now starting to include Wi-Fi on them. Video is on them. I'm sure it won't be long before, AMD's already including the memory controller on the chip. So slowly but surely, the chips are getting a little larger, and components on the motherboard, including even voltage regulators on memory modules, that's going to be part of the memory module on DDR5, meaning the motherboard manufacturer doesn't have to utilize that space. So the motherboards could be smaller, or they could use that space to add some other feature for something else, which, if widely adopted, could be then absorbed and integrated and assimilated into the CPU. So everything's sort of right now getting converged on the CPU. It's a slow process. And when you look back at this stuff 10 years from now or 20 years from now, it's going to seem like you're looking back into the Flintstones. You're going to say, I can't believe how impressed I was by that, because it's pathetic. So I've been in the business long enough that I keep seeing the same thing over and over. I see how excited we were about a 486 DX266, which seems silly now, and it wasn't that long ago. So a little perspective, That's not to say the AMD chip is bad. It's just you can't focus performance on one component. That's all. Whether it's their video card, what good's the video card if you buy the latest and greatest, let's say a 2080 Ti, and you're plugging it into a 10-year-old computer? What's the point? So, Viable Solutions wants to know if I've seen the Corsair One systems. Not a fan of any of the pre-builts. I just don't like any of them. I think if you want a pre-built, go buy an Apple. Corsair in particular, I feel like they're chasing a fad. Corsair seems to be in this, whoever their CEO is directing the company through fads. I don't agree with that direction the company has taken. A lot of this stuff, you look at it and you go, wow, look how impressive that is. And 2 years from now, you're going to be like, I can't believe how big and weak this thing is. This technology moves too fast for that. As long as you build your own machine, you can always upgrade it and change it and keep up with the times without having to completely replace everything or be restricted into what you can or cannot replace. So I recommend avoiding those machines at all costs. What looks good today and what performs well today will not stand the test of time. Not in this industry. We're moving far too quickly. And if it's important to you to always be up to date, you don't want a pre-built system. It's too limiting and ultimately too expensive compared to the better value you could have to something you design for yourself, which of course you'll be able to upgrade with no limitation whatsoever if you pick the right parts. Like if you decide you're going to build a mini ITX system, well, you're going to be limited to the mini ITX form factor. But if you build a standard ATX or micro ATX computer, what you can do with it not only today but well into the future, into the foreseeable future, is limited only by your imagination and product availability. And I suppose your wallet, but still cheaper. This is a good, this is very good right here. Enchanting Boudoir says you cannot make a cake with only one ingredient. That's true. I even have cake mix. It's not enough. You still have to add stuff to the cake mix. That's a very good example. And so let's just say you go to the store because you're going to make a cake and you've already got flour and sugar. So you don't buy those things, but you buy the rest of the ingredients fresh butter, fresh eggs. Everything's fresh. Baking soda, baking powder, it's all fresh. But the flour and the sugar, you can't remember when you bought that. That flour and sugar could be 3 years old. It's sitting in a container. Now, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to cause you any harm. Food expiration dates don't, maybe get you an upset stomach or something, but food expiration dates are mostly just there for freshness, for the best tasting product, to have the right texture and to be the way you expect it to be. But if you want to open a bag of chips that's 2 years old, I'm sure you can eat them. It may not taste pleasant. It's not going to kill you. So that being said, why would you invest all this money into these ingredients to make a cake that's important enough for you to make, but you're too cheap to replace your flour and your sugar? And then what ends up happening? Maybe the cake doesn't rise as well as it should have, or doesn't quite taste right, all because you wanted to save $4. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to go through the effort and you can't remember when you bought an ingredient, especially as you get older, time flies. You might think, I bought that a few months ago. It was a few years ago. Look at the date on the bag. I've gone through stuff in my cabinet and I'm like, holy smokes, 2013 was the expiration date on this. You know, if you're not somebody who cooks very often, it's very easy to have a bag of flour or sugar sitting for literally years. And if it's in a container, it looks the same. You can't tell by looking at it, but it may not have the same impact of result when you go to utilize it. And what a shame that you would spend so much time and effort and money to to buy the rest of the ingredients you needed and save a couple of bucks because you figure I already have that stuff. And then you're disappointed. You think, I must have made it wrong. No, you made it right. You just were too cheap to buy new ingredients. So especially when something's very inexpensive, it doesn't make sense to try and save a couple of bucks. And especially if it's something you're feeding yourself or others, you deserve the best, especially when it comes to food. And for a couple of bucks, it doesn't make any sense not to. And in the same way with CPUs and motherboards, why would you spend $800 on a CPU and then $100 on the board to put it in? It doesn't make sense. So with all things being equal, ideally, you end up with a very good end result. But the minute you go lopsided on one thing or the other, you're probably not going to be happy. Probably. And that goes with all things. The cake example was a great example. Thank you for that. Just looking through the comments, see if there's any other questions. Lee Freeman says, AMD are the competition, and without them we get poor value and slow progress. This is agreed, at least on the PC side, certainly not on cell phones or other electronics. Intel is the biggest chip manufacturer in the world, I think. I don't think Intel makes chips for cars and appliances and smart devices and on and on and on and on and on. AMD, not so much, mostly just the PC side of things. So AMD's got their fingers in more pies than just the PC. So Intel does have to respond to AMD, though, as they would any competitor, and that's good for us. We definitely want to see AMD continue to thrive and to continue to push Intel and let the best man win, let the best company win. Does Acronis 2020 resolve the unwanted file system boot sector change issue that you had? I don't know. Only last night did I upgrade my flash drive to the rescue disk to Acronis 2020. I haven't used it yet. I have not had an opportunity to even try and boot from it to verify that I made it correctly. I'm assuming I made it correctly, and I'm assuming it's going to work when I need it. I don't have any jobs right now. Do I? No, I don't have any jobs coming up where I need it that I'm aware of. So it may be a while before I get to that test. When customers call with problems, it's my job to resolve them. I can't predict who's going to call me for what issue, but the issues I've got coming up don't resolve or don't include any cloning. But it'll happen. It's a matter of time. Christopher Turner says hello from North Carolina. Welcome in, Christopher. Do you remember your first build and what were the specs in year? Yes, let me think about this. First of all, I started with a TRS-80 Model 1 home computer and then later moved to an Atari 400 home computer. It was probably 6 years of running 8-bit machines. And prior to that, at school, in high school, we had Apple IIs, and we had a Commodore PET. So I was programming when I was 15 years old. I was programming the Commodore PET and the Apple II. I was using both of those. And that would have been 1983. And then when I saw Wing Commander, because the PC just to me, when it came out, it was just text. It was, you know, an 80-column screen. There were no graphics. There was no color. In fact, Tandy made a big deal, Radio Shack, with their color computer. Hey, it's a computer in color. So you got to remember, I'm coming from that time. So my first PC was because I saw a game called Wing Commander, and I was impressed, very impressed with the graphics on the PC. I said, I got to play that game. And a friend of mine built it for me, and I paid him. It was $1,200. The year had to be 1988, maybe. It was a 286-12, you turboed to 16 with a turbo button. 4 megs of RAM. Megs, not gigs, megs. 40 megabyte hard disk drive, 40 megabyte hard disk drive. It ran DOS 5.0 at that time, I want to say, using programs like QEMM 386 in order to utilize any memory over the first 1 meg, because you had 640K limitation in DOS with 384K above that for the system, and that's your first 1024 right there. That's 1 meg. So if you had 4 megs, the only way you could utilize the 3 megs above that was through special software, like QEMM 386. I remember using programs like Stacker to try and double the amount of space on the hard drive from 40 megs to 80 megs using software compression, which really slowed everything down. And ultimately, certain files like JPEG files are already compressed, and you can't compress them. So if you had 20 megabytes of JPEG files, after running Stacker, there's still 20 megs of JPEG files. You haven't done anything. So everything was ISA. There wasn't PCI, there wasn't Visa, none of that existed yet. Would have been IDE, the hard drive would have been IDE. And it was AT style, not ATX, it was AT style. And it was a desktop, like it was a computer that sat horizontally with the monitor on top. And the monitor, big glass tube CRT, well, not big, couldn't afford that. I would say the whole thing, monitor and everything, keyboard, mouse, monitor, computer, was $1,200. I do have a video, it's called How I Got Started, where I have some of the Atari computers where I demonstrate what I used, what they look like, how they worked. It sort of led into a little bit of personal life with high school and some of the struggles I went through. I wasn't planning for that video to go in that direction, but it did. And I hope it's inspiration for especially other kids in high school that might be suffering from bullying or other issues. But be that as it may, that video is called How I Got Started, and I go through that whole series of what that was like back in the 80s and why, and what's changed since then. Do you have a recommended alternative for the Corsair 200R case? At this point, I do not. I would have to talk with you and sort of get to know what your needs and budget are and figure out what would be the best case for you under those circumstances. In general, the Corsair 200R case is unique in its design, which is why, when there was word of it being discontinued, I was very concerned, because as far as I'm concerned, it has no competitor. So for me, it didn't make any sense for Corsair to drop a case that has no competition. But look into a couple of case manufacturers I would recommend looking into to see if something looks good to you would be Silverstone, look at Be Quiet, and look at Lianli, Lianli. See if any of those float your boat. Do you remember the ZX81? Yeah, that to me was a toy. It was about this big. It didn't really do anything with but point at it and laugh, just like the Texas Instruments TI-99. They were to me the toys of beginners. Like they weren't anywhere near as powerful as the Ataris and the Apples and such. So, you know, I sort of had that nose in the air attitude when it came to those things. What software do you use to edit your videos? Again, all answered, should be all in the video notes there. What I use to edit, what my sister uses to edit are two different things. But pretty much use whatever you like. What I use doesn't matter. You know, you've got to use what works for you and what makes sense to you. I don't think there's any bad editing software. Just some are more intuitive. Some have more features or features that, you know, you may or may not need. Masking, green screening, 3D, 4K, 360-degree videos. All features that vary from one editing suite to another. But it's important you use the latest version of any editing software, because otherwise, what's the point? Was the Nuka-Cola build your favorite build so far? That's what Viable Solutions wants to know. No, I wouldn't say it's my favorite build. I don't know that I have a favorite. I like all my builds. Every build I do, I like. I don't think I have a favorite. Winston Angloos contributed $2 Canadian. Thank you, Winston. Do you sell PCs? No, I build PCs. I do not sell them. So people will contact me and they pay $125 and I ask them for their phone number when I receive their payment so I can schedule a consultation with them over the phone. That takes about an hour, 2 hours, sometimes longer, depending on the conversation. And based on that, I'll put together a parts list after I ask a zillion questions. And then I have them look at the parts list typically the next day. It takes a while for me to put it all together after the conversation to weigh all the thoughts and options. Send them the parts list, encourage them to ask any questions or address any concerns with me on a follow-up call or email. And then if they're good with everything, they can order those parts wherever they choose to. So I don't have to worry about somebody saying I'm too expensive or too cheap or whatever. And then they'll have those parts shipped directly to me where I will make the video and build the machine. And that $125 they paid, that's going to go towards FedEx paying to ship that computer to them within the United States only. I don't ship outside of the US. And the only money I make is really from these videos. So I don't have to listen to anybody saying I rip anybody off or I charge too much or any of those other outrage people are so desperate to find in today's culture. I'm just waiting to be outraged. Well, good luck finding any sort of reason to be outraged with the service I offer. If you can do it any cheaper, let me know how, because I think it's a pretty good deal. And Frederick has contributed again. Frederick Lundholm out of Sweden, 50 Swedish kroner. Intel and the AMD founders worked in the same company. Yes. So I've covered all that in the past, Frederick. In fact, if you watch that video, how I got started, I talk a bit about Nolan Bushnell and Atari and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. It's all been covered years and years ago. So I have a pretty big video library, and I understand it may be more than most of you have ever seen. But before making assumptions with regards to information that may or may not have been provided, you might just want to check first. I think you'll be surprised at just how much information is contained in the 800 plus videos that are available on my channel. Considering the average length of these videos, it contains a ton of information. Jitesh has contributed £5. He says, thanks for sharing your knowledge and also for giving free advice and education, as well as recommending RoboForm, MCSoft, and Acronis. It really suits my needs. I agree. I think MCSoft is an excellent antivirus product. Acronis is fantastic at cloning and making backup images. And RoboForm is a great password manager. None of these products are free. I don't think there's a great free product. Certainly not in the antivirus arena or the cloning arena or the password management arena. Crystal Diskmark is free and it does a good job. And Crystal Disk Info is free, and CPU-Z. These system utilities like CCleaner and Glary that are free, they're pretty good. But pretty much, system utilities like CCleaner and Glary are obsolete now with Windows 10's storage management, where it does all the cleanup on its own now. So that being said, if you're looking for great products that are free, good luck with that search. People don't seem to realize that the road to free leads to a dead end. If everybody offered everything for free, there'd be nothing offered. It would all just go away and there'd be nothing. So, do you want to work for free? Why do you expect somebody to write code and spend hours debugging it and dealing with the harassment of people criticizing it just to give it away for free? Why would anybody do that? Carrie, how do you work out the power supply size when you do a build? It's pretty simple, really. For most computer builds, trying to go for about 500 watts. And then when a computer build is beyond basic, when a computer build such as this one has a high-end graphics card, I look to see what the graphics card needs. It's really that simple. If a system were, for example, to have some specialty hardware in it, I would look to the specialty hardware. But minus the specialty hardware, 500 watt power supply should be more than enough. In fact, even 430 watts, anywhere between 400 and 500 watts on an average build for like an office, it's plenty. It's more than enough. It's only when we get into going over and above a standard build. And in this case, it's only going over and above on the graphics card, nothing else. So the graphics card wants 650 watts minimum. That's what we put in. Now, when the graphics card manufacturer tells you 650 watts, they're not saying the power supply needs 650 watts, because if that's what you're reading into it, then you're not understanding the information that's being conveyed. The manufacturer is basically telling you that with your motherboard, your processor, your hard drive, overall, if you're going to add our graphics card into a standard desktop PC, you want a minimum 650 watt power supply. Do you understand? They're not saying you need 650 watts just for the video card. That is not what they're saying. They're saying for the video card to work in general in any computer ever that it's compatible with, you want a minimum 650 watts to ensure that you'll have enough power to power the computer and the graphics card. And I think that is something often misconstrued by those reading that information. It's one thing to provide the information, it's another thing to comprehend it in the way that it's intended. And that's, again, another frustration of mine, because to me it's very obvious. It wasn't until somebody said something to me recently that it occurred to me they didn't understand the context in which the information was relayed. That's not their fault. It's something that over time, it's just an accepted fact and becomes common knowledge. But if you're new, or if you're under a rock, then it's not common knowledge for you. It's not your fault, and it's not a matter of insulting anybody or anything. It just was something I have omitted over time. It's something I used to explain, but I don't explain it anymore because I used to have to explain what RAM was. I don't have to do that anymore. It seems like the culture has caught up and people know what RAM is. There's still people who don't, but unless they convey, what does this mean? I assume they know. So it wasn't until recently where somebody's like, well, if it's 650 watts for the power supply, how do you calculate the rest of it? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That's all of it. That's everything. That's not just the video card. And then I realized, I better say something about this on a video because it's been a while and we're losing some traction here with, new people coming in and learning this stuff for the first time. And let's make sure we give them all the right information so that they can correct others and we can sort of put this to bed and it can once again be accepted as common knowledge. Jasser 1066 has contributed 10 pounds. Hey, thank you, Jasser. And Oystein has contributed 200 Norwegian kroner. Kerry, I have a 6900K CPU, he says, and I wonder if it's worth it to switch to a 9900K CPU, or am I just throwing money out the window? Really, I can't say. It depends on how you use the machine. Also, the chipset. If you're gonna go to a 9900K, you really aren't gonna take advantage of that without a Z390 chipset. So, or at least you want a Z390 chipset. So just to change out the CPU probably wouldn't make sense. But if you're going to change out the CPU and the motherboard, that may or may not make sense depending on what you're expecting back for your investment. Maybe something that makes a world of difference, maybe something that makes no difference. Because I don't know you and I don't know how you use your computer, I don't know how big of an impact that's going to have for you. It could have a big impact for one person and no impact for another. Depends on the software you use and how CPU intensive it is. So really impossible for anybody to answer that question for you unless they know the answers to those questions that are unique about you and how you use your computer. But thank you for the contribution. I wish I could be more specific with my answer. That's why all these parts are available. That's why there's so many motherboards and so many chips, is to meet the needs of individuals. It's difficult to tell an individual you've never met, know nothing about, what meets their needs. Catherine Anna Hauserman joins us in the chat. Her name is in blue. She's a moderator, and she will put parts lists together for those of you wanting to build a computer, but you're not quite sure what parts to buy. You don't want to pay me to build it. You want to build it yourself, but you just want to know what are good parts to use, what are compatible parts, what's going to fit your budget, what's going to meet your needs. Now, why Catherine does this for free is beyond my comprehension, because it's a lot of research and it requires a lot of patience to ask all the right questions. And the parts lists that she puts together are fantastic, and the people that have built computers using her parts list have emailed me countless times with praise about how courteous she is and how good she is at what she does. So she's available here in the chat if you want to talk to her about that. You can also find her on Facebook to send an instant message. Now, some people have said, well, I'm not going on Facebook, so how else can I get to her? Well, you can ask her that question when she's in the chat, but we're not here to accommodate you. Like, if you're not willing to go through the steps necessary for the free service, then I suggest you pay for service to accommodate you. That's sort of the behavior of a rich person. That's all I'm saying. Your Music Sucks has just contributed $5 to the channel. Hey, thank you for that. Can you clone an NVMe drive to a SATA and vice versa? You can clone anything to anything. I've already got a video on that on the quick tips. Acronis will clone any hard drive or solid state drive to any other hard drive or solid state drive in any direction of any size. Doesn't matter. Big to small, small to big, old to new, new to old, doesn't matter. Acronis doesn't care. It will clone any combination of hard drive, solid state drive, NVMe, M.2, SATA, IDE, SCSI, serial attached SCSI, any form of storage. You can even clone one USB drive to another if you want to. Carrie, it'd be cool if you did a build with Catherine one day. Yeah, maybe one day we'll be able to do that. Catherine's in another country, but you never know. Carrie, what's your take on the Kaspersky antivirus software? I don't have a take on it. I think it's important people have some sort of protection on their computer, and it should be paid. If you're running any free protection, you're not really being protected. You might think you are, but you're not. You absolutely are not being protected. Not as well as you might think. Now, some people think they don't need any protection because they don't make mistakes and click on things they shouldn't click on, but that doesn't save you from worms. In fact, this last recent round of updates to Windows 10 is critical that you get those updates, or you can be infected just by turning the computer on. So if you don't have any security, then you don't get any sympathy when bad stuff happens. And if it hasn't happened yet, it doesn't mean it's not going to. Keep it up. It's only a matter of time. It'll catch up with you. As for Kaspersky or any of the other dozens of antivirus providers out there, I don't have any opinion on them. If you use whatever works for you, use it. What I think about it is irrelevant. If you like eating at a restaurant that I don't like eating at, what difference does it make? You know what I mean? Just keep doing what you're doing. You're fine. When is Mitch coming back? I think Mitch comes back today. Has he been gone a month already? I think Mitch is flying home today, if I'm not mistaken. Oystein has contributed 50 Norwegian kroner. Says, I use my PC mostly for gaming. Well, again, that doesn't really answer any of my questions because there's lots of different games, and some games are more CPU intensive. Most games are more GPU intensive, and some games aren't GPU or CPU intensive. Games like Solitaire and Minesweeper come to mind. But, you know, if you're playing Star Citizen versus, I don't know, StarCraft, there's a big difference. You really should go to the game forums of the games that you play and see what other people are using for their hardware that works well for them, rather than asking a complete stranger on the internet and say, I game. What does that mean? The Sims? Or does it mean first-person shooters? Or does it mean multiplayer online, you know, RPGs? Or is it what? There's lots of different. You could be playing chess. That's a game. I don't know. So are they racing games, flying games, shooting games, simulators, emulators? Yeah. So all that varies on which hardware is going to perform best for you. And it does vary even by the version of the game. One version of the game may not perform well with certain hardware, and another version of the game can. So you always want the latest updates, the latest patches to make sure the game is performing optimally with your hardware. Samuel says, Mitch should be your permanent cameraman. I do agree with you, Samuel. Mitch may not agree. John says he's running a 9900K on a Z370. So the only problem with running a 9900K on a Z370 is you won't get all the benefits of that 9900K until you bump up to the Z390. Now, whether or not you need that, I don't know. But if I was going to invest that much money on the chip, I wouldn't go cheap on a Z370 board. I would definitely get a Z390 board for that. And Madi has contributed $2. Thank you, Madi. Steve H says most game descriptions include recommended hardware lists. Yes, but it will change. You want to go to the website and get the latest information. Sid says the only problem with the RTX is not many games have actually used it. Well, that's not correct. The RTX straight out of the box is about 20-25% faster than the equivalent GTX. Just right out of the box, nothing else is different. If what you're referring to is the ray tracing ability, then yes, few games actually utilize that right now. But that's not a reason to put the card down, because the card is faster. It does perform faster. Now, does it perform faster equivalent to how much more it costs to the GTX? It's a little off balance there, in my opinion. But Nvidia is getting away with it because they can. Until AMD comes out with some real competition, or Intel on the GPU side of things, Nvidia is kind of ruling the roost. And they know that this is a limited opportunity where they can charge whatever they want. As soon as something competitive comes out, they'll have to bring their prices down. So for right now, Nvidia has this opportunity to increase their profit margins. And because profit margins are so tight normally, they're going to exploit this opportunity as long as they possibly can to increase their profits and make their shareholders happy. And if you were running the shop, you'd be making the exact same decision, or you'd really upset your shareholders and probably be without a company. So that's the way the world works, my friends. And if it was the vice versa, if AMD had it, AMD would be doing the exact same thing. It's not rocket science to understand the way CEOs work today. It's strange that they have to go to get a degree in oh, I forgot what the degree is called already. But it seems that all they really care about is how do you pay your workers the least amount, charge the most for your product, and get the biggest return on investment to your shareholders. That's pretty much all you have to do as a CEO today. Sid says, they said the 390 chipset is the same as the 370, except the 390 has integrated Wi-Fi. Well, Sid, I don't know who they are. It's always interesting to me when people quote facts from anonymous sources that they can't name. But you're looking at a video with a Z390 motherboard right here that we've already spent half an hour talking about why it does not have Wi-Fi. So you can believe what you want to believe, but you've been given misinformation. And you shouldn't believe anything somebody tells you that you don't already know. You need to verify. So I'm going to give you an example of what I would do if I were you. So if I'm shopping for a motherboard or a system and I want to make sure that I want to get something that's equivalent, that's not going to hinder my CPU, I'm paying this money, what is going to benefit me the most? Does it matter? Does a Z370 motherboard work equally on the latest, fastest Intel chip? Now let's just think about that for a minute. Will last year's motherboard work equally with this year's chip? Generally speaking, 99 times out of 100, that answer is going to be no. It may be backwards compatible, but it's not optimal. So when you're looking at a Z370 versus a Z390, you can just go to Google and type in Z370 space VS, which is short for versus, or type the word versus space Z390. And a number of links will come up and explain to you the differences and why. So if I just pull one of these sites up randomly, just randomly, I have no idea what I'm about to read here, but let's take a look at what some of the key differences are. Intel 8th and 9th gen processors are only compatible with the newer Series 300 motherboards. That would be Z370, 390, H370, B360, H310. They are definitely built with enthusiasts in mind, and at a quick glance at the prices for both these motherboards, they'll convince you of that, just reading directly from the site. Now, the Z390 doesn't give much of a performance difference compared to Z370, but there is a performance difference. They both support the same memory and CPU overclocking. The overclocking results from both boards are highly positive, although in terms of RAM overclocking, some people have had better results with the Z390. They both have support for Intel Optane. But the Z390 is sort of a refresh of the Z370, and it adds a few extra features that are absent in the Z390 boards. So USB 3.1 Generation 2 support, not going to have it on a Z370. It's not there. I'm told that there's add-in cards and stuff you can do to resolve that, but it's always best if you can just get it right on the board that was designed. There is no option for 802.11ac Wi-Fi built into a Z370. Like if you wanted built-in AC 802.11 built in, you have to go to Z390. So, but again, I don't recommend that in either case. I'd still do an add-in card. Well, the Z370 will do the job. It's not optimal for the latest generation of Intel chip, the 9900K. Certainly if you went the other way around, if you had a Z390 and you were using an 8th gen CPU from 2 years ago, no problem with that. So the motherboard is more than capable of handling the CPU. But when you put a more powerful CPU into an older board, now you're being limited by the board rather than being limited by the CPU the other way around. But there's not a whole lot of difference other than obviously the Z390 is an improvement over the Z370. And if there's a Z410, that'll be an improvement. It's always evolving and getting better. So to buy the latest and greatest Intel chip and to pair it with the previous generation of motherboard does not make logical sense to me, and it would not be what I recommend for any of my customers. Will it work? Absolutely. As you witnessed, it works just fine. Will it work as great as it can with all the bells, whistles, and features that that chip can provide? No. Will you notice the difference? It depends on you. You might be somebody that says, I've tried them both, I don't see a difference. You might be somebody that's like, I absolutely see the difference. It depends on how you are as a person and how you use your machine. That being said, it really doesn't become a factor of consideration upon my recommendation. I pair new with new, old with old. I don't pair new and old. I never do that. I think it's a huge building mistake to try and save money by mixing and matching evolutions of components. So that's how I maintain a business. I can't, if I did that to somebody, if I sold them the latest generation CPU on the previous generation motherboard, I'm gonna get called out on it and I'm gonna be made to look like an idiot if I did it. Now, what you do at home is your business, but I wouldn't do it and I wouldn't recommend it for that very reason. If you're spending that much money, the price differential between a Z370 and a Z390 is minimal. And it won't become an issue in the future that it might become, theoretically. So that's my thoughts. For some people, it just won't matter. For some people, they'll never see the difference. And if you're happy with your build, you're fine. There's nothing to fix. But I would have never built it that way. I would have never even entertained the idea. Just like this build here. Did I go with a Z370? I could have. I didn't. I don't want any reason for my customer to feel ripped off or misled or given false information that some friend tells them, oh, you should have got the Z390. He's like, what? This is brand new. No, that board's not brand new. That board's over a year old. I just got the system last week. I don't want my customer to have that conversation with somebody they know, turn me into some kind of bad guy. So I have liabilities and accountabilities that you don't have. So the reasons I do things might be a little different than the reason you do things. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's all about responsibilities and different circumstances involved. Carrie, when you go to Michigan, have you ever thought about shipping your computer? No, I'm not going to ship it because I have no control over how they handle my stuff. If I bring my stuff, put it in my car, I can control the care with which it's handled and transported. So I will be doing that myself. There's an old expression, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And when it comes to this hardware, I'm going to be out of luck if I arrive in Michigan and my parts are lost in the mail or don't show up on time or arrive damaged. I cannot afford any of those scenarios. And there's plenty of room in the trunk. There's no reason for me to not take it. It's also going to save me a lot of money in shipping costs and not cost me any more money in my travel expenses. So should I spend more money to add more risk or just do it myself and save money and remove the risk? Pretty easy decision. A master's in business administration, there it is, thank you, Carl. An MBA is what you need to get a degree if you want to become a CEO. You need an MBA to be a CEO. Thank you. Adam Pervez says, love from Pakistan, Carrie. Thank you, Adam. John Brady's contributed $5. He says, thanks for all the great information. You're a good guy. Thank you, John. Thomas has contributed $10. He says, hey, Carrie, I'm using an audio rack to keep all of my gear in, and I'd like to move my PC to a 4U rack style case. Is there anything you would recommend? I know it's not practical. It's just for fun. I don't build or deal with racks of any type. That is generally done more like kind of work Mike Smith over at TechVets or the Mike Tech Show. He could probably advise something like that. I couldn't even tell you the name of a rack manufacturer. I don't. It's just not my wheelhouse, not what I do. But thank you for the contribution. I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you on that. And another 100 Swedish krona from Frederick Lundholm. Thank you again, Frederick. Carrie, if you could get your hands on any monitor, which brand and model would you go for? Monitors, speakers, keyboards, and mice, they're all very subjective. What you see and what I see are likely not the same. So what I'm sensitive to with regards to light, color, reflection, pixelation, maybe something you don't even notice, and things that you notice may be something I don't notice. And therefore, what I like with regards to audio, video, anything that is subject to individuals, it's a taste. If I bit into some chicken wings and you said, are those chicken wings spicy? And I said, no, these aren't spicy. And you bit into them and they're the most spicy thing you've ever had in your life. Am I wrong or are you wrong? So I avoid answering these questions because the answers are completely irrelevant to who you are and what your likes and views. You know, like I said, I can't see what you see, I can't hear what you hear, and I can't feel what you feel. Only you can. And therefore, what I like has very little to do with what you like in that regard of anything subjective. We can talk about objective things. We can talk about fact versus fiction. That's fine. When we talk about preferences, my preferences are irrelevant to yours or anybody else's. Sharon Idle has contributed £1. Hey, thank you, Sharon. Thanks for your continued support. James Raymond says hello from the Philippines. Welcome in, James. John Mallory says hello from Maine. Welcome in, John. I've never been to New England. I would love someday to drive the Appalachian Trail. That's what I want to do. But I'd still like to see Maine and New Hampshire. I think the Appalachian Trail starts in New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken. And Vermont, just see that whole part of the country, especially in the fall. Yeah, that'd be a great road trip. One of these days. One of these days. John Tem says hello from Texas. Mike Paradin says hello. Chunkier Fish says that he's used FedEx and has been very satisfied with them. I still ship via FedEx. All the systems, including this one behind me, will ship via FedEx. They're expensive, but they do a very good job. When I'm buying parts, there's a lot of things I take into consideration. First is the manufacturer's reputation, the length of time the part's been available. I don't want to turn any of my customers into guinea pigs or risk my business reputation on some new product. I also consider the reviews that are left for the product as well as the warranty for that product, along with the price. So it's not a very easy decision to just jump and say, I'm going to grab this part that's unfamiliar to me. And so for that reason, once all that research has been done, you'll see me use the same parts over and over to avoid having to go back and redo the research. But when the part no longer meets the need of the customer, or the part becomes unavailable or becomes obsolete, then I have to go back and research all over again. Now, you can spend more time researching than building if you're doing it for a living. Thankfully, the parts don't change that often. I might have to update a part every couple of months, and I don't update all the parts at the same time. So there's been a significant shift in the types of power supplies that I use. When the 80 plus standard came out, it sort of shifted the weight of measure of a good power supply versus a bad one. Then you combine that with modular versus non-modular. You combine it with warranty and price and availability of support if you need it. And that's what led me to EVGA for graphics cards and power supplies as of now. Now, if EVGA were to have a management change or a policy change that significantly impacted the warranty, price, or support of their product, then that would be my motivation to find an alternative. But so long as they maintain the status quo of what they've been doing, then I'm going to maintain what I'm doing. Remember, my customers don't know EVGA from ASUS or GIGABYTE. They just know they bought a computer from Carry. I'm talking about my business clients, my local clients. These are people that are entrusting me with their money to listen to what their needs are and to build them a reliable, high-performing machine that will meet their budget and do the job they want it to do above and beyond their expectations. So if I build the cheapest computer for the biggest profit margin, it'll probably eat me alive in labor warranty costs, where the customer will be calling me to fix things and they'll expect those fixes to be free, as they should. And that means I start losing money and I'm not available to build new computers and help other customers that generate revenue because I'm busy fixing a system I already built, which has already inconvenienced the customer. And if I have to keep going back and repairing it, I didn't make any money. It might even cost me money. And that might even cost me a customer who says, I'm never going to buy another computer from Carry again because it keeps breaking. On the other hand, you sell them a really good computer, and they may not need to order another computer from you for anywhere from 6 to 10 years. Sorry, you did a good job. You did too good of a job. I don't need anything else. I would love to order another computer from you, but I don't need one. The one you built is great. So if you have a choice between the two, I prefer that a customer has no need to call me. That's my choice. I basically try to work myself out of business. And any repair person should. Anybody who fixes anything for a living, your job is to put yourself out of business, to fix everything that's broken so there's nothing left to fix. But because there are so many computers and there are so many people, that's unlikely to happen anytime soon. But it is my goal. My goal is to go out of business, that everybody will have everything they need and it'll all work reliably, and I'll have to find some other way to make money. I just don't think it's going to happen for a while. The Appalachian Trail runs from Vermont to Georgia. Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember where it started or ends, depending on your perspective. It was Vermont or New Hampshire. Regardless, still, when I'm in that part of the country, I'd like to see Maine and New Hampshire. That's pretty much what I was trying to get to. If you're going to be in Vermont, if you're going to be the Appalachian Trail, I won't be any closer. You know what I'm saying? So that would be the time to do it. That's all I was trying to convey. But thank you for letting me know that. Zero Course says your YouTube notifications are not working. Check to make sure the email address that you set up with YouTube is correct, that you haven't changed it. Make sure that your email service that you've used is not blocking those messages in spam. Try creating a second YouTube account with a different email address. Turn notifications onto a subscription and see if that works. Something with your email is wrong. If notifications are turned on, you may have created your YouTube account with an old email address you don't use anymore, or you have an email service that's putting it in spam, and try a different email provider like Gmail. Gmail works perfectly with YouTube. Gmail is a free account. Make a Gmail account, create a YouTube account associated with that Gmail account, subscribe to the YouTube channels you want notifications from, and click the bell icon, and I guarantee you it will work. It will work every single time. The reason I know it works is because Gmail and YouTube are owned by Google, and all of that inherently works together. Any third-party email service, whether it's Yahoo or your ISP, might be blocking those messages or putting them in a spam filter that you don't even know is is happening. So, and if you want to, you can forward all of your Gmail to your other email account so that you still only use one email account. And that'll fix your notifications every single time, I guarantee it. Guarantee that fixes it. But the problem is there's too many email services and they all try and do things differently. And whether it's from your ISP or a third party, if you use the email service provided by YouTube or owned by the parent company, I guarantee it works. And it's all free, it costs you nothing. Super easy to fix and free. Zero Course says, I've already got it assigned to a Gmail. Once again, I would still create another Gmail account and don't modify it or change it in any way. There's something you have more than likely done to your Gmail account that you don't remember doing. You might have seen a video and somebody advised turning some feature on, and you have inadvertently shot yourself in the foot. If you leave everything at default values, create a new Gmail account, I assure you it will work every single time. The minute you go in and you start messing around with settings, because like I said, you read an article or you saw a video that said if you change the setting, you'll get this benefit, that's where you have these consequences. And people don't realize that. If you leave things alone, they will work as they should. But I would predict and I would guess that you have at some point in time in your history of that Gmail account made a settings change. So that's it. That's how it works. I can't think of any other reason, because it works for everybody and it's all owned by the same company. And the only people in my experience that it doesn't work for are the people who have inadvertently turned it off and they don't realize they did it. So the only way I can tell you how to fix it is to create a brand new Gmail account and leave it alone. Don't modify any of the settings. And then use that to create a new YouTube account, leave it alone, don't modify any of the settings. Go ahead and subscribe to what channels you want, turn notifications on. I guarantee you it'll work. This is what happens when you tweak stuff. It just has consequences. Frederick Ludholm has contributed 200 Swedish kroner. Oh, Frederick's in a generous mood today. Thank you, Frederick. Thank you very much. I've seen so much of it. I've seen people put firewalls in and then they can't get their email or they can't go to certain websites and they don't understand why. They put in pop-up blockers and then they wonder why they can't go to certain sites and why sites don't load anymore, and they think it's their browser. They think they have a virus. Like, did you put the pop-up blocker on there? Oh yeah. Well, that's why you can't do that. Well, I didn't know it was going to do that. Well, that's why you don't play around with stuff like that. Not only that, like if you're using an ad blocker, I'm not getting paid on YouTube when you're watching my videos. So if everybody does what you're doing, not only do you maybe not get notifications, but the content creators aren't getting paid. If the content creators aren't getting paid, why keep creating content? Or why create so much of it? Like, where's the incentive to make a video tomorrow and the day after that? There's one thing to make a video because you've got the motivation to say something, to convey information, you enjoy it. But then at the end of the day, you still have bills to pay like everybody else. You've got rent, you've got food, you've got electricity, cell phone, internet bill, plus all of the things you need to create content, cameras and cables and microphones and batteries and lenses and tripods. It goes on and on and on and on and on. It's a huge, huge investment. Just to give people content for free, all they have to do is watch an ad, and then those people put an ad blocker on, so you don't even get that. So it's just a downward spiral into nothingness. So just bear in mind, if you want to support somebody, turn your ad blocker off for them. Or it's a website. Some websites won't even let you browse their content. You go to TechCrunch with an ad blocker, you won't be able to read. Is it TechCrunch? Yeah, I don't think you can read any content on TechCrunch. Big pop-up will come up and say, you have an ad blocker. It's the only way we make revenue, and we're not allowing you onto the site unless you pay us for a subscription, and then you can keep your ad blocker, or turn your ad blocker off and come back. And there's a lot of websites that do that now. They're aware that you're using the ad blocker, they're aware they're not getting paid, and so they don't want to give you anything. So you can either subscribe to them and pay them, or you can turn your ad blocker off, or you can go somewhere else. We're going to see more and more of that. Sooner or later, practically every single website that conveys information will disable itself with an ad blocker detected, or a subscription, a paid subscription to the service. What choice do they have? How does it get financed? Who's paying for the bandwidth? Who's paying for the server? Who's paying for the labor to get everything up and configured? And who's paying for the content? Enjoy it while you can, because it's going away. I think in another 10 years, it'll be virtually impossible to find anything worth anything for free. We know what happens with free. We know the abuse that comes with free. We know that people have nothing else better to do and will harass you. If you don't believe me, go on Facebook. Yeah. It's free. Samuel Kowalski also recommends logging out and logging back into YouTube to see if that solves notification issues. Certainly there can be a problem that a login and log out could fix. It's worth trying. That's a good recommendation. I think I've addressed all of these comments here. Steve Grove says, I'll be seeing you in Michigan. I can't wait. Right on, Steve. That's going to be great. For those of you who don't know, there's a tech conference. This will be the first of what I hope is a regular annual tech conference in I was going to say in the Detroit area. It's nowhere near Detroit. It's on the other side of Michigan towards Wisconsin, on the western side of Michigan. And it's called Con Unplugged. And there's a link to it in the video notes below the video here. But Con Unplugged is at techconunplugged.com. And you can go there now to learn more about it. But basically, it's a number of speakers, The CEO of Roland Technology is Tim Conkle. He'll be the featured speaker. And they're doing Friday, September 20th is day one, and it starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll do from 4 to 6. It'll be sort of a mingle. People just hang out. From 6 to 7, there will be a dinner that's included with your ticket price. All the food for this 3-day event is included in your $199 ticket price. And then through 9 p.m., they'll do networking, sort of, you can meet your favorite podcaster. Well, also networking. It's another word for socializing with other people who have a similar interest. And then there'll be a Saturday night social they're doing after the event at 6 o'clock until 11 o'clock in the evening. So this is after the event at the hotel. If you want to, you can enjoy great food and company hanging out with everybody at Dave & Buster's, which is just down the street from the hotel. And they'll have Michael Sherwood from Malwarebytes talking about cybersecurity in 2019, as well as Alex Smith, also from Malwarebytes. Alexa Platt-Lee is from Freedom Voice, and she's going to talk about how to provide VoIP services to your clients. Matthew Rodella has a company called Tech Site Builder, and that's really about local online marketing that he's going to be giving a presentation on. Elizabeth Vanover is an executive marketing collective, or she's with the executive marketing collective, to talk about brand marketing your business. Mark Haskelson is a compliancy group. He's going to talk about HIPAA compliance. So if you want to take on any clients in the medical field, you have to understand the requirements in the USA of HIPAA compliance in the health business. Jeff Hallish is the owner of TechNut Computer Repair, and he's the host of Podnuts. John Dubinsky is the owner of the Maven Group, and he's the co-host of the Computer Repair podcast. Marvin B., well known to friends who listen to the Mike Tech Show. He's the owner of MB Systems, and he also hosts Podnuts Pro, again with Jeff Hallish and John Dubinsky. Mike Smith himself will be there, and he's the owner of MHS Consulting, does the Mike Tech Show and Tech Vets. And of course, Paco Lebron, he is the founder of Prodigy Techs and host of Tech Life, the podcast. This is happening at the Holiday Inn Grand Rapids. There is an airport in Grand Rapids, Michigan that you can fly directly to. If you fly into Detroit, you're going to have about a 4-hour drive. I think it's 3 or 4 hours. And again, it is September 20th through the 22nd. You don't have to stay at that hotel. Your ticket price, it covers your food there at the hotel. Hotels kind of work you over on this, they won't allow outside food in, and it's all part of a convention deal. Every hotel does it the same. So with that, they've got expenses they've got to cover. So it's $200, works out to about, $70 a day, less than $70 a day. And I honestly believe that the panels and the information that are being provided are well worth the money when you consider how much it costs to go to college for a semester and hope you're learning the information correctly, which is theory, versus learning it from somebody in the business who's taking time away from their business to explain it to you. I'll take the information from the guy running the business first before the teacher. Unless, of course, the teacher's in the business. In some cases, in schools, they are. In other cases, teachers just teach. So without knowing who the teacher is, I can't convey how accurate the information is going to be in an ever-changing and always evolving industry like this. So again, it's the $199 includes all the meals and snacks. It includes dinner at Dave & Buster's, as well as a game card to enjoy activities. And of course, all the content, networking, and business strategy. Now, if you compare that to the cost of other conventions, it's very reasonable. I think even Comic-Con is pretty pricey if you can get tickets. And that's just entertainment. There's no educational value there. So I'm looking forward to going. This will be probably the first real tech convention that I'm going to that is really about businesses like mine, the small business, and the problems small business owners have. Marketing, billing, adding new services like VoIP, how do I do that? Learning about compliance issues with FINRA or HIPAA or other niche, what we call vertical markets, which you can charge more money for. You have a lot more responsibility, it requires a lot more knowledge and a lot more skill, so not everybody can do it. This qualifies you or prepares you what you need to be qualified to offer that service, and because of that, you can charge more money for it. In fact, You could even specialize in it and do nothing but that and realize you don't have to work so hard to make more money. So all that can be conveyed by people in the industry that are actually doing it, how they did it, how they recommend you do it. And I'm not aware of any other convention like this. So September 20th through the 22nd, if you want to meet me or you want to hang out, you want to learn more about the business, that's where I will be. I hope I see you out there. Viable Solution says, you're not going to want to come back, Carrie. You're going to be having such a good time. Every time I go to Michigan, I don't want to come home. That's nothing new. One day, I will return to my home in Michigan, where I'm from. When I say my home, I don't literally mean a house. I just mean that part of the country is my home. So, yeah. And Madi has contributed $5. Thank you, Madi. Carrie, I use a Wi-Fi that plugs into a USB port. Hey, nothing wrong with that, Fred. Nothing wrong with that. Sharon Edel says 110 minutes to not fit a Wi-Fi card. So these are live streams, right? I think if you're looking for something to go quickly, then you want to watch the edited version. The whole point of a live stream, at least my live streams, is to hang out. It's to just hang out. The editing that's done is done for the impatient people who don't want to socialize, they don't want to be part of a group, and they don't care about any dialogue. They're here for, I'm here for the title of the video. Well, the title of the video is a live stream, and here that means we're hanging out together as friends. It'd be like going to a dinner party and you're there for an hour and dinner hasn't been served yet. And you're like, where's the dinner? It's really rude, and you're misunderstanding the point of the dinner party. If what you want to do is just go somewhere and eat, I'm sure there's a fast food place you can hit. In my case, my live streams are about hanging out. If you're not in the mood to hang out, leave. You can come back later when this video is edited and the whole build is put together and all of this hangout part is cut out. And that way we serve two different audiences. We serve the audience that likes the two-way communication that can only be found on the internet. You're not going to find it on TV or in other forms of media. And then for the other group that's like, I just want the information to go, well, that's what the edited videos are for after the live streams. I do not recommend you watch my live streams. If you're an edited kind of person, then you should watch the edited videos. Then we'll all be happier that way. So I will get to the Wi-Fi card. The Wi-Fi card is going to take 2 minutes to install. It's no big deal. And as long as I'm having a good interaction with people here in the chat, I want to make sure that they understand that I'm listening to you and I'm responding to you. I don't think you get that from many channels on YouTube. But if that's not important to you, this really isn't the channel for you. Or maybe just the edited stuff is more for you. But poking and prodding at me to do the Wi-Fi card install is not, it's just like going to a dinner party and just harassing somebody about where dinner is. It's pretty rude. So I'm just going to ignore those people. And Winston Anglu has contributed $2 Canadian. Thank you, Winston. Is an unlocked Intel CPU a viable option for a non-Z series motherboard? Yes, because a K unlocked CPU is 10% faster stock than the non-K. So if you look at any Intel chip with a K and then compare it to the same model number without the K, look at the specs. It's 10% faster. So 3 basic differences between a K and a non-K is 1, the K is unlocked, 2, the K is 10% faster, and 3, the K does not include any sort of heat sink or fan. So you have to provide your own. But if you want the fastest chip you can buy, you want the unlocked K version, because even if you don't do anything to it, if you simply take it out of the box and slap it onto the board, you're already 10% faster, having done nothing else. And the stock fans that come in the i7s anyway are too loud, and they will overheat if pressed. With Prime 95, it will overheat in the sense that it'll throttle. It won't cause any damage, but it'll throttle. It'll get loud and it'll throttle. So you're going to want to replace that with a better heatsink, and like the Mugen 5 for $48, easy to install, more than adequately cools and keeps it quiet. So I always recommend the K CPUs because they're faster. Even if you don't overclock, they're already the fastest chip of that version available out of the box with no modification, and no special chipset is necessary. But the Z chipset offers you more than the ability to overclock. The Z chipset offers you more SATA lanes, more USB ports, and there are other benefits to the Z series chipset, which may or may not be a benefit to you. If you have 4 USB ports on the back of your motherboard and you're fine with it, that's all you need. Doesn't do you any good to have 10 if you're only using 3 or 2. So 4 is more than enough. But if you need more than 4, you need to change the chipset to something that'll support more USB ports. And what speed? Is it supporting more USB 2s or more USB 3s or both? And what's important to you? Keyboard or mouse doesn't matter. USB 2, 3, 3.1 doesn't matter. If you're moving some data across those things with like an external drive, it does matter. So again, different products are available to meet all the unique and individual needs of each individual user. And Past Me has contributed €5. He says, I think it's a he, I don't know. I enjoy every minute of your show, Kerry. Thank you, Past Me, I appreciate that. Joy Dipto Roy says, I remember you said you were going to make videos on life. I'm waiting for them. Well, I've already got the second video is posted. The first video has not been posted, but the second video is on Life 101 is the name of the channel. And we're just discussing philosophy, attitude, perspective, and how it impacts people's depression, anxiety, hope, goals, accomplishments, desire. It's all up in here. And they're choices we make, whether we realize we make them or not. And I will be bringing my friend Ron Russell back as we can explore all these different ideologies of what makes somebody successful, what makes them different than you and I. Or maybe you are successful already. How do you determine your success? Or you determine it through finances or through freedom or through accomplishments? How do you determine that? Why do some people seem to have everything going for them and some people seem to have everything going against them? What makes those two people different? Is it their environment? Is it their attitude? Is it something about them physically or mentally that's different? And so that whole life channel is exploring all of the philosophy behind that, with the concept being you can do anything you set your mind to do, but you have to believe in yourself first. And not everybody believes in themselves. And if you're looking for approval from other people, it's often just a lifetime filled with disappointment. And how do we learn to stop doing that? It's not as though you can wake up one day and say, I'm just not going to do that anymore. I'm sure some people can. I don't think most people can. It's when you have a habit and you're trying to break that habit, you have to create new habits. And when you consciously, repetitively focus and force yourself to a different behavior every day, before you know it, you'll be doing it without thinking about it. And that's how we get rid of old habits and replace them. Let's get rid of bad habits and replace them with good habits. Let's get rid of negative habits and replace them with positive habits. Your negative habits are occurring because you're repeating them, whether you recognize it or you don't. And now you're doing it thoughtlessly, without effort. When you want to do something, creating a positive habit, you have to focus on it and concentrate on it and purposely think about doing it until it becomes automatic. It's an incredibly simple thing to say, and it requires a certain amount of stick-to-itiveness, a certain amount of persistence and stubbornness. Some people write notes to themselves so they see it every day, so they don't forget whatever they got to do. I've seen people put rubber bands on their wrist, and whenever they have a negative thought, they snap the rubber band to stop that. Lots of different ways to remind yourself until it starts to become automatic. And we'll explore some of that. And ideally, we just want to encourage people to be happy, whatever that is for you. See a lot of people that seem to be unhappy, miserable even. Why? The human race has never had it this good. Certainly not in the developed countries, for sure. So why are you so miserable? What is so bad? And how much of that is just attitude and how much of it is your circumstances? And what part of your circumstances are you responsible for that you can change or that you created yourself? Even by choosing to do nothing, you still make a choice. So that's all in the works. Like I said, episode 2 is up. Episode 2 is currently the only episode. I will go back to do the introduction to the channel and what it's about at a future date. And then again, my friend Ron Russell will come back and we'll do episodes, I don't know, maybe we'll do episode 7 next. That's the great thing about Life 101. It doesn't have to flow any particular order. There's no right way or wrong way. There's only what is making you happy, what is making you feel fulfilled, versus what leaves you empty and feeling despair. It doesn't have to have an order to it. But that's the philosophy side of it, right? It's not religion. It's not, I mean, it can be if you want it to be, but it's a choice. It's a choice that you choose to be a victim. You choose to be depressed. You choose whether or not you're going to fight back. To me, people that are depressed have given up the fight. Never, ever give up the fight. And by the fight, I don't mean physical punching. By the fight, I mean mentally challenging yourself to accomplish a goal. And when you accomplish that goal, you will feel fulfillment, and that will replace your depression. Maybe temporary. So you may have to then find something else to fulfill you, and something else after that. A lot of people who suffer depression can miraculously cure it by simply stop thinking of themselves and start helping somebody else. Some people say, I can't even help myself. How can I help somebody else? You can help somebody else. And in doing that, and you don't have to be rich to be generous or kind. You can focus your energy on something more positive and be fulfilled when that other person says, thank you for your help. And sometimes it's something that little to start you off on a path to living a life that you enjoy and that you gain a sense of purpose. Like, I am here for this. And you have to find it within you, or you find it from religion, you find it any way you need to. Find your purpose and drive towards that goal. And there's no looking back. It's all positive and it's all hope. And you can't wait to see what you could do tomorrow once you realize how powerful you are. Regardless of what anybody says. If anybody's a naysayer, just push them out of your way. Just get out of my way. Don't let them stop you. You might just surprise yourself if you give yourself a chance. Cosmic Motorsports has contributed $5. Thank you for your contribution and support of the channel. I appreciate that. Madi says, who's going to build my PCs if you move to Michigan? Nothing changes. I can still film in the kitchen on YouTube in Michigan or anywhere in Europe, and I can still ship computer. Nothing changes. I mean, Madi's in Florida. That's not preventing me from building a computer for him. He's got nothing to worry about. Hopefully I'll build more for Madi as well. I look forward to it, regardless of where I live. There are people that I see in the chat that are quick to justify their depression. And as long as you believe that, that's true. I can't argue with anybody who believes that. Thomas has contributed $2 and says, please move to Michigan. Hey, I'm working on it, Thomas. I am working on it. Did you ever take that trip to the camp you were talking about? Not yet. Stealth Mode has contributed $5. It's about my turn. Thank you, Carrie. Always great content and conversation. Thank you, Stealth Mode. Will you enjoy the cooler weather? You think? I'm not quite sure what the weather's going to be like. Let's take a look at that. What was the weather in September 2018 in Grand Rapids? Average weather in September in Grand Rapids, daily high temperatures. That's not good. What else do we have? Looks like it's going to be pretty warm. Could be 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Or as low as 50 degrees. That's a big range. Hopefully we'll be in the 70s. I don't know what this year has in store, but it is mid-September or late September. And as we approach winter, it should be cooling down. But I mean, last year on the 21st of September, it had a high of 79 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 55 at night. And then the next day, the high was 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 46 degrees at night. And then going from the 20th forward, it was 71, then 72, then 80, then 66. That's a big change from one day to the other. 80 degrees Fahrenheit to 66 degrees Fahrenheit as a high. It's a 14-degree difference in one day. That's the great thing about Michigan, though. You can experience all 4 seasons in one day. You can have rain and then snow, and then it could be cold and it could be hot, and that's just lunch hour. Okay, might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm sure the weather will be much nicer there than it is here in September. Pretty sure. It's not always the case. Carrie, you need to move to Ireland. You would love all the rain. Yeah, I probably would. Might have a problem on speaking the language. But that's okay. Ireland looks beautiful. Scotland looks nice too, but a little rough. Looks like you gotta have quite a bit of character and stamina to withstand the pretty harsh weather there in Scotland. Thomas says it's great here. So Thomas must be in Michigan. I agree. I absolutely agree. I have nothing but great things to say about Michigan. And every time I go back, I never want to come home. It's always the best people, the best food, the green trees, the big oak trees, big maple trees, the wildlife, the deer, the raccoons. Love it. I love it. Squirrels. You don't see squirrels in Phoenix. You know there's a tourist when they're taking pictures of squirrels, right? Like, that guy ain't from around here. That guy's taking pictures of squirrels. I haven't seen a squirrel in 20 years. Mark says it's the same in Massachusetts. The weather can get crazy at times. Never been there. But again, that's all part of that sort of New England area that I just haven't had an opportunity to visit. Does the train go through Grand Rapids? I don't know. I'm sure Jeff Hallish or Paco LeBron, they're the two main people putting this event on, and you can contact them directly using the contact link at TechCon Unplugged, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer that question for you, as well as advise you of any other modes of transportation besides air that could be viable. Kerry, did Mitch go to Southeast Asia yet? Yeah, that's where he's coming back. He was in Thailand. He's been in Thailand for the last month, I think. I think he's coming back today. Kerry's going to be chopping wood soon. I could definitely live that life. I could absolutely live that life. So I think what ends up happening, so if you grow up in an area where you got to deal with snow and you've been dealing with it 30, 40 years, all you can think of is, I want to get away from this terrible snow and I want to live somewhere where it doesn't snow. But the vice versa of that is true. If you've lived in nothing but the desert and all you see is brown and mountains and rattlesnakes and scorpions and cactuses, and that's your idea of wildlife, on top of the fact that everything's crowded because everybody wants to move away from the snow, so everything's jammed, everybody's rude, everything's expensive, and the weather is oppressively so hot that the last thing you want to do is even step outside, then you might come to the same conclusion after 30 or 40 years of that I'll take the snow, because you can always put more clothes on. And if you need to heat yourself up, it costs you $0 and 0 cents to make a fire. But running an air conditioning unit, because you have over 100 degrees for over 100 days in a row during the summertime in Arizona, it leads to a very expensive electric bill. Or in some houses, they just don't get cold because they're not insulated very well and the AC units are inadequate. So the house never really gets cold. And then you just think, I have to go somewhere like a movie theater or a shopping mall to spend my day to get out of the heat because I can't stay in my house. If your air conditioner breaks, you probably will not be able to sleep. You will have to go to a hotel until your AC gets fixed. So it can be a very expensive, very crowded, and very rude place to live. Move somewhere where people struggle together and they generally help each other out and are more considerate and kind to one another, and not everybody's trying to move there. So places like Las Vegas and Phoenix, they're growing like crazy. The people, everybody's moving there. And because of that, you have a very nomadic community. It's rare to see a neighbor for more than 4 years. They generally move away long before that. Back east, it's rare to not have a neighbor for 20 years, the same neighbor. People just are more nomadic in the West. They're always moving. It's like they're searching for something better. They've left one place to come here, and they're not happy here, and they're just never happy, and they're always moving. And it means you always have new neighbors all the time. I've been in my house for 10 years, and if you go all the way down the block, everybody has moved at least once, sometimes twice, all the way down my whole block. In just 10 years, I have been here the longest of any other house on the entire block I'm on. Now, back in Michigan, never had a single neighbor change in 12 years. Never. All the neighbors, all 5 houses that surrounded us, because we were in a cul-de-sac, were all the same families all 12 years I was there. So I think there is a very nomadic attitude to the people in the West and more of a resiliency to the people in the East. And I admire and respect that resiliency. It stands for, to me, consistency, reliability, persistence, dedication, loyalty. They're things you just don't find out here. Well, they exist, but nowhere near in numbers to the same way they exist back east. And if it doesn't matter to you, who cares? But it matters to me, because it really defines the people who live there and how they treat each other. It's easy to treat somebody you don't know with disrespect. But when you see the same person for years. I hope you get along. They're not anonymous. You know who they are, whether you like them or you don't. It's in your best interest to get along because you both are going to be there a long time. And it can be a lifelong hatred or a lifelong friendship. It's your choice. In Arizona, just stick around. They're all moving. They're all moving. Doesn't matter if you like them or you don't like them. They'll be gone in a couple of years. Winston Angloos contributed $2 Canadian. He says, Vancouver, Canada is a fun place. I'd love to visit. I've never been. Maddie Cladd says, I live in Minnesota. We've had the same neighbors for the last 17 years that we've been in this house. Yeah, I'm telling you, the people back east are just, they're more consistent, they're more reliable type of attitude. Steve Burnett has contributed $2. Where do the heat sensor cables go on this board? Well, you can place them wherever you want them. I don't use them. I think this obsession with monitoring heat is foolish. You're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. There's no reason to monitor heat where there are no heat problems. So as long as the system continues to perform and run its tasks as the owner requires it to, there's no benefit to be gained through monitoring heat other than you're somebody who has anxiety and you want to feed your anxiety. You want to be worried about something you don't need to worry about. You want to consume yourself with ridiculous, irrelevant information that plays no role in reality to the circumstances that your computer is operating under. Now, if you're overclocking and pushing a system beyond its engineering specifications, that's when you need to start monitoring stuff like that. Now, this is an enthusiast level board, and the reality is the people that would use this board for who it's designed for is probably fewer than 1% of the people who buy it. So that being said, they include everything for that 1%. It's what's expected at that level of board. But 99% of the people don't need it, don't want it, it's absolutely, completely useless. If you run the board stock, you run your CPU stock, you've got a super fast, super reliable computer that will run 8 years, 10 years, probably still be running, no problems. The minute you start pushing things beyond their design, you're probably going to have problems or reduce significantly the reliability or the length of life of the components themselves. And it doesn't make you any better. You're not a better gamer. You're not a better programmer. Nothing you do by overclocking is a skill that you as a person can really turn into productivity, except there are a couple of things where somebody is very intensely rendering like photographs or videos, and if they can shave a half an hour off the rendering time without compromising the stability of the system, it's worth the overclock and watching the heat. But we're back to that 1% again. And those people already know this, so they don't need me to explain it to them. So I'm not hooking up the heat sensors. They'll stay in a plastic bag in the motherboard box because it's just stupid. For the reasons this computer is being purchased and being used, all it's going to do is invite an opportunity for the customer to have anxiety that has nothing to do with reality, and therefore is a complete waste of time and energy to hook it up, to install the software to monitor it, and then to deal with the customer's concerns over nothing. Just don't use them. They don't need it. What is the hottest it's ever gotten in Arizona? In Phoenix, it's reached 122 degrees Fahrenheit. And at that time, I was driving a car with no air conditioning, but I was a lot younger. But 122, I got to be honest, once it hits about 113, anything hotter than 113 is just too hot. If it's 113 or 122, I can't tell you. I can just tell you I don't want to go outside. It's too hot. For me. Now, when I was younger, I'd ride my bike to the mall. It didn't matter how hot it was. I was going to the mall and I was riding my bike to get there. The house I lived in didn't have working AC. And if I had to ride a mile, I had to ride my bike a mile in the heat to get to the mall. And that's exactly what I did every single day from the time I was about 14 until I was about 17, 16 when I got a car. Jan Mihailov has contributed €5. He says, hello, Carrie, here's a little money for your great channel. I really learned a lot from you through the years. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Jan. If you have YouTube Premium, YouTube Red, it's ad-free. Do you still get paid? Yes. Yes, that's the whole point of subscriptions. Subscriptions actually pay me more. So people who have YouTube Red and watch my videos, I make more money from them than I do from the people who watch the videos for free, and that's all handled automatically through YouTube. YouTube gives me a better value of my time for subscribers. Back to the heat sensors. So the board has built-in heat sensors already, right? That's how you can monitor the temps in the BIOS. But there are also some cables in there that appear to be heat sensors that you can place. You know, if you're overclocking your video card or something, and you want to really watch the temps around the card, you can place those heat sensors. There's no right or wrong way to place them. You place them where you want to place them, and as such, it results in, unless you really are a very technical person, probably frivolous information. Do you get many scorpions coming into your house? Yes. Yeah, scorpions are a problem here. And they're the worst kind of scorpion. They're called a bark scorpion. You can Google that. And the smaller the scorpion is, the more dangerous it is. The babies, the young scorpions, they don't have any venom control. Same is true of snakes. So like an adult scorpion can strike you and release a certain amount of venom. But if a baby strikes you, it just releases all of its venom. It doesn't control it. And as such, their stings are much, much worse. And yeah, they're very difficult to kill. It's hard to find pesticides that work. They can live underwater for like 30 minutes or some ridiculous thing. They can go without food for over a month. They're very, very difficult to kill. Basically, what an exterminator or pest control will do is kill all of the insects that the scorpions eat. So the scorpions have no reason to be at your house. And they'll go to your neighbor's house if they don't have pest control, because their scorpions just want to eat. And if you don't have the food they eat, you reduce the number of scorpions you have significantly. Procta has contributed £2. Thank you. And William Romero has contributed $2. Says, I took your advice and I got a battery-powered leaf blower. Right on. Hope you like it. Stealth Mode says they have bark scorpions wherever he is as well. Yeah, those are the worst ones. They are. If you see a big, nasty-looking scorpion, their sting is not so bad. When you see that little scorpion, they're the worst. And of course, like I said, the bark scorpions versus others, the bark scorpions have some of the worst venom. So of all the scorpions you can have, these are some of the worst ones that you have to deal with. In some areas of Phoenix, there are some older communities where you just never see them. And then there's some newer communities, or just areas of the, what do you call that? The sort of the migration trail the scorpions take, if your house happens to be built on that, that they will infiltrate your home any way they can. Now, they don't generally want to attack you. They're just looking for food. They generally stick to hanging on the walls or corners. It's pretty rare that you see one walking around a floor in the middle. It's possible. It's pretty rare. If you walk around barefoot around your house and you have scorpions, you risk stepping on one. So, not a problem I'll ever have in Michigan, by the way. Never had that problem in Michigan. Carrie, is the AM3 Plus platform obsolete? I mean, I wouldn't buy one today, but if you have an AM3 Plus platform or any other that suits your needs, as long as your needs are being met, that's all that matters. But if I was going to build a new machine today, it would not be an AM3 Plus. So in that sense, it's obsolete. Patrick says, Carrie, if I overclock my shirt, will I lose weight faster? Try it. Let me know how that works for you. Bob Shoemaker says it's 114 degrees Fahrenheit in Sun City, West Arizona right now. A Viable Solution says at 122, I would need liquid cooling. You definitely do. Yeah, believe it or not, we have people, this is a common story. Somebody comes in from out of the country. There was a couple here from Germany. And they just decided they were going to hike a mountain when it was 115 degrees outside. And they had to be rescued. They were suffering from dehydration and heat stroke. I don't know what they're thinking. You know, if you're going to go hiking, you do it really early in the morning or really late at night. The danger of doing it late at night, of course, is when you're hiking, there can be scorpions, snakes, and you can't see them at night. You got to go in the morning, but that means you better be down off that mountain, you know, before 11 o'clock in the morning when the sun is really up there. Or better yet, don't do it at all. Don't do it at all in the summertime. Go in the fall, go in the winter, go in the spring. Don't hike mountains in the summertime as a tourist. You're just asking to be rescued. The most dangerous animal we have in Ireland is a cow. Okay. Sounds like Kansas. Simple Text says, please know that both the AM3 Plus and FM2 Plus sockets from AMD are discontinued. All right. So when it comes to installing the Wi-Fi card, bet you thought I was never going to get around to that. It's a very painless and simple procedure to install. We can put a Wi-Fi card in through USB, or we can put it into the PCI Express. The problem you're going to have with a high-performance Wi-Fi card is the limitation of the speed of your USB port. You can't go any faster than that. So you can get the best USB Wi-Fi adapter and plug it into a USB 2 port, and it's only gonna, even if it connects at these super high speeds, it's not gonna be able to transfer the data any faster than USB 2 can move data. So you wanna be using USB 3 or 3.1, and even then, with a high enough performance Wi-Fi adapter, it may exceed the bandwidth of that USB port if you're sharing it with anything. So if you don't want to worry about any of that, you go with an internal Wi-Fi card. So what I've got here is the ASUS, this is the PC, what do I call it? The PCIe AC88. And you'll see it's got this antenna base, which is magnetized. I like that because you can just stick it right onto the side of your case on top or on the edge. Just, it's a very strong magnet. It's got 4 antennas on it, as you can see in this picture right here. And they're adjustable so you get the best signal possible. The card is very easy to install. This is a picture of the card right here, and you just plug it into any available slot that will fit in, and Windows 10 will even load the driver for you automatically. It's the easiest install. It's really super easy. And if the Wi-Fi standards change and you get some $500 router with, I don't know, Wi-Fi GF, I don't know, whatever the letters are going to be, this card's going to seem pretty slow, right, compared to what the router can do. That's the evolution of tech. So if you want to be able to keep up with the latest security on your Wi-Fi and the latest performance with your Wi-Fi, then you always want to run the latest Wi-Fi router with the equivalent Wi-Fi card. The card is limited by how fast it can go, and the Wi-Fi router is limited by how fast it can go. So if I have a $20 router and a $100 Wi-Fi card, this card won't run any faster than that $20 Wi-Fi router, which means this is a waste of money. On the other hand, if I buy a $20 Wi-Fi adapter and Wi-Fi it to my $500 router, it's only going to go as fast as the $20 Wi-Fi adapter can handle. So you pair these things up accordingly. If you're somebody who's a bargain hunter, then you will look for a bargain router and you'll look for a bargain Wi-Fi card and you'll get bargain speeds. If you want the highest speed possible, you pay the most expensive price for the Wi-Fi card and the most expensive price for the Wi-Fi router, and then you will have speeds your friends and neighbors will envy, if that matters to you. Now me, I'm moving a lot of big video files, and if I want to move them wirelessly, I'm going to be there a while. So the question is, how long is a while? Well, if I can spend some money to get a faster Wi-Fi card and spend some money to get a faster Wi-Fi router, a while changes significantly. So for example, I've got the Netgear XR700 router. It's $500, or I think it's $450 now, $450 for this router. And it's more than capable of handling every Wi-Fi adapter on every device ever made. But if you want it to handle peak performance, then you need to buy a network card that's equivalent. And in that case, that's going to be a 4x4 card. So there's 2x2, there's 1, and it all impacts the performance of the card as well as the range it's going to get. And so I've used these for quite a while now. In fact, I had one in the streaming computer. There were times when I was streaming wirelessly using this card, I didn't even realize it because the Wi-Fi is already faster than the internet connection is anyway. So once you've exceeded the speed of your internet connection in streaming, any speed above and beyond that is irrelevant to that chore. But the minute I'm moving 2 or 3 or 4 gigabyte files, bigger than that, 17, 20 gigabyte video files from the streaming machine over to the NAS, then my limitation is primarily on the speed of the NAS. Like I am flooding the NAS with so much information that if I had a faster NAS, it would actually go faster. So you run into a bottleneck somewhere in the chain typically, and it's all resolved by how much money you want to spend. And I'm happy with the performance of the NAS. I don't need it to go any faster than it already is. And that's a Synology 918 Plus, I think that I have. I think it's a 918 Plus. So let's get this out of the package. You can see it's brand new. It's never been opened. And the installation, super, super easy. There are lots of cheaper Wi-Fi cards you can pick from. But once again, putting a cheap Wi-Fi card into a $3,000 computer doesn't make any sense. But if it's yours and I'm not supporting you, it doesn't have to make any sense. That is not a requirement. It does not have to make sense. So inside of the box, got our 4 antennas here. Now, I will not ship these with the antennas attached, just like ASUS did not ship this card with the antennas attached. They're easily damaged and broken in shipping. There's also a little low-profile slot cover, so if you want to put this into like a 1U or 2U rack mount, that's what that's for. So we won't use that. There's a driver disk, which we won't use because the driver should install automatically in Windows 10. And then there's instructions and warranty, which again, we won't really need any of that. It'll go in the motherboard box for reference to the customer. And that's all that's in the box. This, as I mentioned, this is magnetic, but the case is apparently aluminum, so it's not sticking. Oh, it's metal there. It's grabbing it there. So, and Lyle has got the box. Where are you going with the box, boy? He's leaving. Lyle is left with the Wi-Fi card box because apparently he thinks he's a cat. You are not a cat. And much like a cat, he's not listening. Yeah, he really doesn't like boxes. Did you get that box? Did you get it? You happy now, Shredder? So this base is going to plug in, these 4 cables are going to plug into the end of this card. And then these antennas can be plugged into the base. Or if you really want to, if you don't want to use the base, you can plug the antennas directly on the back of the card if you want to. It's your choice. This is optional. You don't have to use it. I recommend using it because it just gives you a lot more options with regards to adjustment for the best signal strength. And when you have an antenna sticking out the back of the computer, it may prevent you from pushing the computer back against the wall. And it's not an ideal location for the antennas to be blocked between a wall and the back of your computer. Try to reach the radio signal coming from the router. Now I had Jason Hintersteiner, who was with Ingenious at the time, who was an MIT graduate and designs these Wi-Fi routers and cards. And he explained it doesn't really matter how you use these antennas, but they should all be equally distant from each other. So in other words, if you were to turn one like this, then turn them all like that for the best signal strength. They should be in equal distance from one another for the best, so they should all be, you shouldn't have one up and one down, and this one, you know, this way. He says that actually is worse for your signal. So in this case, just leaving it with the default, leave them all straight up. Same on the router. Keep equal distance between all 4 antennas, and you'll find you'll have a stronger signal for that. So I'm going to just set this here for right now. Now we have a choice on where we can put the Wi-Fi card. We can put it at the very top if we want to, or we can also lower it down. Any of the slots on this motherboard will work. The big slots or the little slots. Even though it's a little connector, it will work in the big slots or the little slots. There is some plastic on here that has to come off. And it's got a big heat sink on it because it's fast and it gets hot. Now, if we jam this up here in this top slot, it's a tight fit and it sort of interferes with the radiator and the CPU cooling, and the card's going to get hot. It's just not an ideal location. The cabling will be clean, you know, putting it on the back right here would be where it would go if we put it there. And that keeps the cabling from interfering with the video cables. However, the heat is awfully strong in that area, so I can put it on the very bottom slot. That's a 16x slot, even though that's just a 2x connector, but it'll fit right in there, no problem, and it'll work just fine. It may just be wasting a 16x slot that you might want to use for a bigger card later, but you can always move it later. There is a little 1x or 2x slot, right here, which appears to be the second one up. And that's the one I would use just because I can. And that would put it right here. So we'll just slide that slot cover out. You know that slot cover is going to go in the box, the motherboard box. And then just line that up and push it in, and then put the screw back. That's it. Job done. We've installed the Wi-Fi card. So if you're wondering why was it this long delay for installing the Wi-Fi card, because that's all there was to it. So I decided we'd have a little chit chat while everybody was wanting to chat. Now, like I said, the antennas can screw directly. You know, we can take them off of here if we want to, and we can screw them directly onto the back of the card if we want to, just like this. And that's designed that way with intention, so that you can accommodate the antennas to meet your needs, your individual needs. You still going at those boxes, boy? Did you forget some of the packing? You should see this look I'm getting. What do you care? I don't see any food around here. I'm starving. I'm eating these boxes. That's how hungry I am. Now, when it comes to putting these cables on, my OCD takes over. It really doesn't matter which cable goes where, but I like to have them all in a line so that there's no interweaving of the cables. There's no mixing of the cables being twisted. So I will just put them on in the order that the cables are aligned here. So I'm not, twisting and wrapping. I don't want to do that. Why? Because it bothers my OCD. Will it make any technical difference? No. Because all the antennas are equally distant, it won't make any difference. But I like everything to look nice and neat, and I also like it to be easy to diagnose if there's a problem. And those two things are related. And even if it's not me diagnosing, maybe it's the next guy or gal. It's a consideration for the next person, which hopefully is me. But just in case it's not, they can admire my work. Those don't have to be really tight. Magnetic. All right, now when I power the machine on and Windows 10 loads, it should automatically load the drivers, and I shouldn't have to do anything else other than connect to the Wi-Fi and put the password in. So you'll see there's no Ethernet cable plugged in. There's power. Here's HDMI. Plug that into the graphics card right there. Looks good. Let's go to video input 2, which is right here. Give me just a second as I arrange this. There it is. We'll just put that down here for now. And again, the reason that's saying no signal is because we haven't turned the machine on yet. Okay, everything else looks good. So I'm making some changes to the OBS software. Let me make sure my keyboard and mouse are turned on for this. I always turn them off. Again, I don't have to. This actually shuts off after a few minutes of non-use, but I'm OCD that way. So let's get this turned on. You will see the front and rear fans are turning because they are hooked up. The RGB lights come on to the sides here. You'll see those are lit up. That's all part of the fan controller. The reset button blinks on and off. That's the hard drive activity light. And down in the corner there, I guess it's over here, right there, you'll see it's already booted into the desktop, and it will be loading the Wi-Fi driver in just a moment. In fact, I can probably go full screen on that now. And if we go over here, we should get an icon for the Wi-Fi adapter. Right there, a little globe. Got to use the right mouse though, Carrie. Okay, go to the little globe right here. It has not detected the Wi-Fi card automatically, so let me just double check the device manager. Yeah, so ironically, I might have to plug it into the network so it could go to Windows, Microsoft's update center to get the update automatically, or I can install it manually. Now, I would much prefer to install whatever the latest driver is. Now, if Windows will install it automatically for us, that's great. So if I was plugged in via Ethernet, I think it would install it automatically. I'm not sure. But what I can do is on the main rig here, let me push this button here. And let's step over here for a minute. Let's go over to this computer. There I am. Let's do a search for, I'll just go to Google and I'll type in ASUS PCIe 88. And the first link that comes up is the ASUS.com website. And I click on support, and I will click on drivers and tools. Select your OS, which is Windows 10 64-bit. Driver's pretty old. Shows it's from April of 2018, so well over a year old. I'm going to download that, and it downloads in a zip file. So I'm going to open that zip file, and I'm going to extract the contents of the zip file onto a blank flash drive, which I'm going to do right now. So we'll just extract it to the flash drive, and that takes just a moment. It's a 60 megabyte download as a zip file. We extract the contents of the zip file onto the flash drive, and then we'll plug the flash drive into the machine behind me and load the driver. We're all done. I'm surprised the driver is as old as it is. I expected it to be newer. Therefore, the driver on the DVD is probably current, which is pretty unusual. So let's take the USB flash drive that I just copied the file onto, which is the one I normally use for BIOSes. It's just whatever, doesn't matter. It's a blank flash drive. And then after I load the driver, it'll be blank again when I erase it. I only have to do this once. So we'll plug that in, the light goes red back here. And then let's switch us back over now to this feed. Back over to the desktop. And let's go to, first of all, I need to go full screen so I can see. Here we go. We'll go to the yellow folder here. And then we'll go to the D drive, which is the 2 gig flash drive. That's the extracted zip file. Driver setup is what I want. There should be a setup somewhere in here. There it is, setup.exe. Double click on that. We'll run it right from the flash drive. Don't have to copy anything. English, yes. United States, yes. In a moment here. Oh yeah, next, next, next. This is loading off an old flash drive. This is not a fast flash drive. If I was using a faster flash drive, this install would have taken less time. So, all right, we'll hit finish. And now if I go back down to that same globe, I should start seeing Wi-Fi networks. I do. Or connect to my guest network right here. Put in the product key. Put in the password. And it's a guest network, so nobody can see any files or shares. It says we're connected and secured. And now I should be able to browse the web. It should just work. Go to sites like CNN, which always changes. Make sure that the website's working like it should. We can even do a speed test, Wi-Fi speed test. We'll go to, let me think, what can we go to? We'll go to speedtest.net. Remember, we're on Wi-Fi. Let's see what kind of performance we get. Well, I'm uploading, streaming at the same time. Let's take a look at what happens here. Now, yes, you will see this IP address down below, submitted by Cox. This is the currently assigned IP address. And those of you who would like to attack me can go right ahead because this changes daily. I'm set up with a dynamic IP, so it doesn't matter if I expose what the IP is. It doesn't put me at risk at all. There's the upload and download speeds. Now, I will tell you from experience that whether I am wired or wireless, these numbers are the same. That's how fast the Wi-Fi is. It's much, much faster than my internet connection. And that's all there was to installing the Wi-Fi card. It's just that quick, nothing to it. And with that done, we can shut this machine back down. And you see it's whisper quiet. It's a silent machine. Very happy with the performance on it. And all that remains to be done now is I have to do the cable management and clean it up. But that's pretty much, You can see what it's going to look like when it's done. And the rest is just making it pretty. And then it gets shipped off to the customer. Everything's running perfectly, just like it should. I will erase this flash drive so it'll be blank the next time I need it. And that's all there is to it. But yes, let's see what we have here. Chester Hughes has once again contributed $2. Thank you, Chester. Is there a program for the Wi-Fi card to connect with the router? The Wi-Fi card only connects to the router, and it's all built into Windows and always has been. While manufacturers may provide a third-party utility, it is fully optional. I much prefer to keep everything standard and utilize the built-in utility in Windows so that everything is universal. No matter what system I work on, I know that all the settings are in the same place. I don't have to worry about some third-party manufacturer's software limitation or upgrade or security issues resulting from using their software for something Windows has built in anyway that works just as well. There's no benefit to using their software instead of Microsoft's. We do need the driver though. Would a USB Wi-Fi adapter work just fine? I already addressed this question. Basically, you're limited to the speed of the USB port you plugged into. So depending on the speed at which you're connecting and the speed at which your USB port can relay information will determine whether or not that is beneficial to you or not with any consequence. If you're using USB 3.1 with an adapter going at high speeds, you should be fine. If you're using USB 2 with an older adapter, that's fine too, or an older router. So the slowest point will be either your Wi-Fi card, the interface that the Wi-Fi card has, or the router itself, or the distance and length of the strength of the antenna signal that you're receiving will also be a limiting factor as well. So in some cases the answer is yes, and in some cases the answer is no. There will be a bottleneck somewhere in there. Once you exceed the speed of your internet service, then the only thing the difference is whether or not you're transferring a lot of big files. If you're not transferring any files, then going above and beyond the speed of your internet service will have no impact on you whatsoever. I saw people upgrade their 100 megabit Ethernet card to a gigabit Ethernet card because they wanted their internet to go faster when their internet was 30 megabits, right? So if you have an internet that's 30 megabits, that's what you're paying for, and you have a 100 megabit internet card or Ethernet card, you're already more than 3 times faster. So when you replace that 100 megabit card with a gigabit or 1000 megabit card, now you're, what, 20, 30 times faster than your internet. It's not any faster. It's already, it helps to move files from one PC to another or one computer to another to have that faster Ethernet connection. Now, if you have a 300 megabyte Ethernet connection, internet connection plugged into a 100 megabyte card, clearly that could be an issue. Same with cable modems. If you've only got a cable modem that has a 100 megabyte Ethernet plug in it, it doesn't make any sense to get any internet that's faster than what your modem can support. So how fast am I going? That's the question. If we're not measuring the speed of the internet and we're interested in file transfer performance, remember I said it's faster than a wired connection? Let's take another look at that one more time. Let's turn the machine back on. It's already hit the desktop. Let's wait for the little globe. It's going to connect us here. And then let's take a look at what our transfer speed is. Remember, there's 1 gigabit per second would be a standard wired Ethernet cable that you would run to your PC. This is wireless, so you automatically think it's inferior. But it's a $500 router plugged into a $115 Wi-Fi card. Let me show you the difference that makes on your performance if you've got a good signal. So if we look at, let's see, Let's go down here, Wi-Fi, and we should be able to, I'm trying to remember where this is. Let's go in the control panel. And then we'll go to networks, network and sharing. And right here is our connection, and our speed right now says it's 385 megabytes a second. Should be much faster than that. I should see speeds in the terabyte. Oh, I know why. I am connected on 2.4. I'm not connected at 5. That's why. So let's disconnect and connect to the 5 gigahertz side. Let's disconnect this. And let's connect to the main network. So the guest network is slower. So let's connect here. I got to remember my Wi-Fi password. I think that's the Wi-Fi password. Let's see. Okay, now what are we connected at? Well, that ain't right. Something's not configured right. This is not unusual to see somewhere between 1.2 to 2.1 gigabits per second. I have something not configured correctly. We're not hitting the peak speeds I should be seeing. And I don't know why. It's pretty unusual. I wonder, look at all these Wi-Fi points. Everybody's got Wi-Fi. I wonder, oh, this, I want to forget this network. Disconnect. Stay on this one. Come on. Connect. Oh, is that so? Now it's connected. Still not right. I'll have to play with that. I think this router automatically combines the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz networks, and it might be keeping me on the 2.4. The minute I switch it over to 5, all bets are off. Everything shoots through the roof with regards to performance on it. It's incredible. Even still, at 385, that's pretty darn respectable. Certainly, it's on the 2.4, I'm pretty sure. As soon as we jump to the 5 gigahertz side, that'll triple. So anyway, I was curious about that. What do we got a problem with the driver? Are we still dealing with the same thing? I don't think a new driver has been released. Let's take a quick look. Let's go to Nvidia. And let's make sure there's not a new driver out there. Because, you know, I've slept, so there might be a new driver. We'll go to drivers, GeForce drivers, RTX 2080 Ti, it doesn't even offer that. .436, released today. Of course they did that. Oh, thanks, Nvidia. Is it that new? Nothing. Wow. Wow. That's a first. Not found. So apparently they just released it. Well, that's fun. Well, I'll look at it later, a little bit later on tonight. I'm sure it's just they've made it available before it's available is what it appears. All right, so with that, it is about 5 o'clock. That's when I like to stop my streams. And I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching today. Thanks to all my friends in blue for keeping everything civil in the chat room today. Madi, thank you for all your contributions today. And let me give a shout out to everybody who's contributed during today's live broadcast. And that, of course, is Madi, Yoel, Chester Hughes, William Romero, Procta, somebody whose message was retracted. I don't know who that was. Jan Melhelov, Steve Burnett, Winston Anglu, Bill Heglini, who says, great show. Thank you, Bill. Thomas says, it's great here. Thank you, Thomas. Stealth Mode, Cosmic Motorsports, Past Me, Simple Tech, Kevin Rank says, I'll see you at TechCon Unplugged. I work in IT in Michigan. Right on, Kevin. I look forward to meeting you. Frederick Ludholm, thanks for all of your contributions during today's broadcast. I appreciate your support very, very much, and for your questions. Sharon Idle, John Brady, Oystein, the username of Your Music Sucks, Jasser1066, Jitesh, Geo Johnson, and many, many thanks to Madi Yoel and Frederick Lundholm, who have both contributed numerous times throughout today's broadcast and have contributed numerous times in past broadcasts. Thank you guys very, very much. I really appreciate that. I will be live tomorrow. There are some more builds to do, more upgrades to do, lots more work to get done, and hopefully I will see you then. And in the meantime, oh, there's one more piece. Well, I'll show this when it's all with all the cable management done and the panels back on it. We'll give you one last shot of what the completed system looks like so that my sister in editing can piece all that together into one video. And those who don't want the chit chat can watch the edited video of just the build process. So we keep everybody happy that way. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.